Chapter 664. Tang Ao was a peak level 9 astral reaching realm martial artist in his previous life, so he naturally knew that Wu Jiong, who was only at the first level of life and death realm, would not be able to break the space and escape. The space ripples around Wu Ku were most likely the effects of spirit items and talismans. No matter how the space ripples around Wu Ku were formed, Tang Ao did not care. Tang Ao did not expect to kill Wu Ku with one arrow. At that time, the reason why Tang Ao had released that arrow with all his strength was to stop Wu Ku's footsteps. And now, Tang Ao's goal had obviously been achieved. Being so deep underground, even Tang Ao's sky polar pupil could not penetrate the thick ice to see the information on the ground. After Tang Ao used his heavenly polarity pupils with all his might, he discovered that even the heavenly polarity pupils could only see through the ice and snow up to a distance of 100 zhang. As for the ice and snow below him, he could only see up to a distance of 500 zhang. Tang Ao was amazed by this ice and snow. Not only could this ice and snow suppress soul power, but even the sky polar pupil was being suppressed, which made Tang Ao feel inconceivable. After all, the sky polar pupil could be considered a very special existence in the world. Even if someone could think of setting up some methods to suppress a martial artist's soul power, they would not think of suppressing the martial artist's sky polar pupil. Not to mention the fact that martial artists with the sky polar pupil were 1 in a billion. Even suppressing the sky polar pupil was something that Tang Ao had never heard of before. Thinking of this, Tang Ao felt that he had discovered something. But as for what it was, even Tang Ao himself could not tell. Since he could not figure it out, Tang Ao decided not to think about it anymore. For such an unfathomable problem, the best way to deal with it was to keep it in mind. When the time came, he would naturally be able to figure it out. Otherwise, trying to figure it out when he did not have any ideas would be making things difficult for himself. When Tang Ao used the sky polar pupil to look around, Xia Qinyu also slowly woke up. After she woke up, she felt that the surroundings were unusually cold, but her body was still quite warm. Xia Qinyu opened her beautiful big eyes and saw Tang Ao's amazing move. Xia Qinyu realized that Tang Ao was hugging her tightly at this moment. At the same time, he wrapped the two of them tightly in a fox fur coat. "Senior brother Tang Ao, why are you hugging me?" If it weren't for the fact that Tang Ao was just holding her and didn't do anything excessive, Xia Qinyu would really suspect that Tang Ao was harboring evil intentions. "Oh, junior sister Xia, you're awake." The ice and snow in this place were strange. We couldn't use our spiritual power to disperse the cold. When we first came down, we couldn't resist the cold. That was why I had to use the most primitive method of hugging each other to keep warm. Now that junior sister Xia has woken up, we can try other methods. As Tang Ao spoke, he shook off the fox fur coat and let go of Xia Qinyu. Xia Qinyu's body was as soft as cotton candy. When Tang Ao hugged Xia Qinyu's soft and delicate body really made Tang Ao restless. However, Tang Ao and Xia Qinyu did not have that kind of relationship, so Tang Ao did not do anything improper. After Tang Ao put Xia Qinyu down, Xia Qinyu suddenly said, "Senior brother Tang Ao is really open and above board. Even in such a situation, you can still sit still." Chapter 665. After Tang Ao began to cultivate, Xia Qinyu also sat down cross-legged. Xia Qinyu quickly discovered the bone-piercing chill that Tang Ao had mentioned just now. This kind of chill couldn't be dispelled by spiritual power, so Xia Qinyu felt her body slowly turn cold, as if she was about to become an ice sculpture. At this moment, Tang Ao's situation wasn't much better than Xia Qinyu's. When the two of them hugged just now, although it was cold, he could still resist it. But at this moment, Tang Ao only felt like the chill had penetrated into his bones, so cold that he couldn't bear it. Even a layer of frost appeared on Tang Ao's eyebrows again. Seeing this situation, Tang Ao smiled bitterly. "Junior sister Xia, let's hug each other for warmth, otherwise we'll really freeze to death here." Xia Qinyu was unconscious just now, so she didn't feel anything when Tang Ao hugged her. But now that she was conscious, it was very awkward for Tang Ao to hug her again. But if she didn't use Tang Ao's method of hugging each other for warmth, Xia Qinyu didn't have any good ideas. So Xia Qinyu bit her lip and finally nodded. It wasn't that Xia Qinyu rejected Tang Ao, but Xia Qinyu felt that this kind of thing was too embarrassing. If it wasn't for the fact that it was a matter of life and death, Xia Qinyu really didn't want to do this. But the ice and snow underground were too strange. There seemed to be no other way to expel the chill in her body. Thinking of this, Xia Qinyu put on a heroic look, as if Tang Ao's hug would do something to her. Seeing her like this, Tang Ao couldn't help but laugh. After Tang Ao laughed, Xia Qinyu immediately said angrily, "Senior brother Tang Ao, since you're making fun of me, I don't want to hug you anymore." Tang Ao couldn't help but reach out and touch Xia Qinyu's head. "Junior sister Xia, you're really too cute." In the end, Tang Ao and Xia Qinyu still used this method of hugging each other for warmth. But this time, Tang Ao couldn't hold Xia Qinyu in his arms like before. Of course, the two of them didn't hug each other either. Instead, he sat back to back and wrapped the two of them in a fox fur coat. "Sai, we can't go on like this. We can't just keep hugging each other." Faced with this strange ice and snow, Tang Ao had lost his temper. Xia Qinyu didn't say anything because she didn't have any ideas at this time. After a while, Xia Qinyu said, "Senior martial brother Tang Ao, why don't we go up? Would it be better at a depth of 1,000 feet?" Naturally, Tang Ao had also considered Xia Qinyu's suggestion. However, after reaching a radius of 300 feet, Tang Ao's soul power could still scan a radius of 300 feet around him. Since Tang Ao's soul power could scan a radius of 300 feet around him, Wu Ku and the others would naturally be able to do so as well. This was because although Tang Ao's soul power was strong, it was only comparable to Wu Ku's and the others' soul power. The only difference was that Tang Ao was only a martial artist on the 5th floor of Linghai Jing, while Wu Ku and the others were genuine life and death realm martial artists. "We can go up a little, but not more than 300 feet. If we can't, we could try going up to 500 feet. The soul power of life and death realm martial artists is extremely strong. Even at a depth of 300 feet, they can still sense a radius of 300 feet around them. So if we go up to 300 feet, once we're discovered by Wu Ku and the others, we won't even have a chance to escape." Tang Ao didn't explain how he knew that a life and death realm martial artist's soul power could detect a 300-foot radius around them, even though they were 1,000 feet underground. Xia Qinyu obviously believed in Tang Ao's words, so she didn't ask him. Chapter 666. In order to allow him and Xia Qinyu to escape successfully, Tang Ao had exposed his primordial sacred heaven bow. Tang Ao believed that a treasure like the primordial sacred heaven bow would be attractive even to Chu Feiyu and the others. Therefore, Tang Ao guessed that Chu Feiyu and the others were probably searching for him and Xia Qinyu in the snowfield. On the snowfield, for powerful figures flew across the sky. After the appearance of the snow monsters, no one dared to fly so boldly. This was because some powerful snow monsters would launch surprise attacks on warriors flying on the snowfield without warning. Many warriors had lost their lives due to the sneak attacks of these snow monsters. However, these 4 people seemed to have no scruples and were not afraid at all. Suddenly, Chu Feiyu, who was at the front, stopped and sneered. "Junior brothers and sisters, our mission this time is to kill all the genius warriors in the Black-Yellow continent in preparation for our Tianyang continent's future entry into the Black-Yellow continent." The silver-haired Baifeng looked at Chu Feiyu and rolled his eyes a few times. He seemed to understand Chu Feiyu's thoughts after thinking about how long Wu Ku had been away. As Baifeng expected, Chu Feiyu quickly said, "We have been in the snowfield for a long time. Among the warriors in the snowfield, the highest cultivation level is only at the 7th floor of Linghai Jing. This kind of strength is not a threat to us at all." "Senior brother Chu Feiyu, what do you mean?" It was Kong Yin Fei who spoke this time. Although she had somewhat guessed what Chu Feiyu meant, she still asked. Chu Feiyu frowned after hearing Kong Nian Fei's question. His sect master had said that the five of them must act together no matter what happened in the Black-Yellow Continent. He had made it very clear that the warriors of the Black-Yellow Continent on the snowfield were no match for them at all. There were many treasures in the snowfield, so he gestured for everyone to act separately. However, Kong Nian Fei seemed to be pretending not to understand and deliberately embarrassed him. If it was someone else, Chu Feiyu would definitely kill the other party secretly even if he would not act immediately. He had always been a vengeful person. However, he really couldn't do anything to Kong Nian Fei. Among the five, he and Kong Nian Fei were the strongest, both at first layer life and death realm. The white-browed silver-haired Bai Feng and the white-browed black-haired Emogu were the second most powerful, being at the mid-first layer of the Sea of Souls realm. Meanwhile, Wu Ku, who had found an excuse to leave, was the weakest of them all, only at early Sea of Souls realm. Although Wu Ku was weak, he was not lacking in ambition. When he saw Tang Ao's sacred heavenly bow, he immediately had an idea. Chu Feiyu had intended for everyone to split up, so when Wu Ku said that he wanted to go back and wait for the kid, Chu Feiyu agreed without hesitation. Although Chu Feiyu didn't want to say it out loud, he wouldn't avoid it. What I mean is, we'll each be responsible for one of the 5 regions in this snowfield. We'll meet up here after we've cleaned up the small fries in our respective areas. Chapter 667. Tang Ao didn't know that Chu Feiyu and the others had split up. At this moment, Tang Ao was still thinking of ways to overcome the cold underground. This time, Tang Ao's method was still very old, but it was slightly better than huddling together for warmth. Tang Ao set up a defensive array formation where he and Xia Qinyu were, and then lit a bonfire between the two of them. After Tang Ao lit the bonfire, the temperature in the underground space rose by a few degrees. At the same time, because of Tang Ao's defensive array formation, the temperature inside the array formation wouldn't escape to the outside and cause the ice and snow to melt. Tang Ao looked at the 4th and 5th grade spiritual herbs and spiritual materials that he used as fuel in front of him and felt helpless. Most likely, only he and Xia Qinyu could enjoy this bonfire. Xia Qinyu was also speechless about Tang Ao's reckless behavior. She really didn't think that Tang Ao would actually use spiritual herbs and spiritual materials to burn like firewood. Although the bonfire dispelled some of the cold, the two of them were still extremely cold. Tang Ao felt the cold in his body and looked at the bonfire in front of him with a bitter smile. Although the bonfire was extremely precious, it didn't help much with the cold in their bodies. Such a cold was something that Tang Ao and Xia Qinyu still couldn't resist. The two of them had only been separated for a while, and Tang Ao's body gradually turned cold. As Tang Ao's soul power swept through his body, Tang Ao saw that his meridians were gradually freezing up. Seeing this, Tang Ao was very helpless. Do I really have to go up? Right now, Tang Ao really didn't want to go up, but there was no way for Tang Ao to overcome this strange cold. That's not right. Tang Ao suddenly thought that after this bonfire was lit, it did slow down the accumulation of cold in their bodies to a certain extent. However, although this bonfire was made of first-class materials, it was ultimately an ordinary fire. Xia Qinyu did obtain an extraordinary fire not long ago. Thinking of this, Tang Ao hurriedly said to Xia Qinyu, "Junior sister Xia, have you refined your peach blossom flame?" Although Xia Qinyu did not understand why Tang Ao asked this, she still shook her head. "I don't have time to refine it. What does senior brother Tang Ao want to do with the peach blossom fire? The ice and snow here is too cold. After the peach blossom fire is ignited, the temperature is extremely terrifying. These ordinary flames are not enough to resist the cold, but the peach blossom fire is indeed enough. So, I think as long as you refine the peach blossom fire, the problem of the cold in this underground space will be solved." After Tang Ao finished speaking, he said to Xia Qinyu, "I will first light a few more bonfires here. You hurry up and refine the peach blossom fire." After learning about Tang Ao's plan, Xia Qinyu took out the jade bottle containing the peach blossom fire without much consideration. Xia Qinyu broke the seal on the jade bottle, and a peach blossom-shaped flame floated out. After the peach blossom fire floated out, it immediately tried to escape. However, the moment it tried to escape, Xia Qinyu's soul power instantly enveloped it. When Xia Qinyu's soul power and the peach blossom fire came into contact, Xia Qinyu's soul felt a burning pain. At this moment, Xia Qinyu also understood how terrifying the temperature of the peach blossom fire was. A martial artist's soul power was a special existence in the world. Even if a martial artist's soul power was immersed in magma, the scorching temperature of the magma would not affect the martial artist's soul power at all. Chapter 668. Among the heavenly flames, the peach blossom fire was considered to be above average. It wasn't hard to refine, so after Tang Ao lit up the 9 bonfires, he quietly waited for Xia Qinyu to refine the peach blossom fire. After Tang Ao lit up the 9 bonfires, the space did warm up a little. Although Tang Ao was willing to use the level 4 spiritual herbs and spiritual materials as firewood, Tang Ao had limited level 4 spiritual herbs and spiritual materials. Although Tang Ao still had some level 5, level 6, and level 7 spiritual herbs and spiritual materials, these things were too precious. No matter how wasteful Tang Ao was, he couldn't bear to burn these spiritual herbs and spiritual materials. He could burn them to his heart's content in the underworld Emperor Mystic Realm, but it would be difficult to obtain these spiritual materials after leaving the Mystic Realm. Xia Qinyu's process of refining the peach blossom fire was just as Tang Ao expected. Although she encountered some problems at the beginning, she quickly refined the peach blossom fire. After refining the peach blossom fire, Xia Qinyu waved her hand, and a huge ball of peach-red flame appeared between Tang Ao and Xia Qinyu. After this ball of flame appeared, the surrounding temperature suddenly increased. At this moment, Tang Ao felt like he was in a snow cave a moment ago, but in an instant, he was in the mouth of a volcano. Even the defensive array that Tang Ao had set up was creaking when this ball of flame appeared. It was obvious that it couldn't withstand such high temperature and was about to collapse. Seeing this scene, Tang Ao hurriedly shot out a few array flags to stabilize the defensive array. Xia Qinyu also realized that the temperature of the peach blossom fire was too high, so she slowly adjusted the temperature of the peach blossom fire. Tang Ao could also clearly feel that the temperature of the peach blossom fire was slowly decreasing. Finally, the temperature of the peach blossom fire dropped to a temperature that could dispel the cold and was comfortable. After solving the problem of the cold underground, Tang Ao also heaved a sigh of relief. Tang Ao and Xia Qinyu were both Sea of Souls realm martial artists. If 2 Sea of Souls realm martial artists couldn't even handle a little bit of the cold underground, it would be too shameful. Fortunately, Xia Qinyu had obtained this peach blossom fire not long ago. Otherwise, the 2 of them would have really gone up. In this 200 feet of ice and snow, even if Tang Ao used his full strength, his soul force would only be able to travel an inch away from his body. At such a distance, a martial artist's soul force would already be useless. In a situation where they couldn't use their soul power, Chu Feiyu's team of 5 would undoubtedly be searching for a needle in a haystack if they wanted to find Tang Ao. Therefore, Tang Ao could cultivate without worry. After deciding to cultivate, Tang Ao took out a pile of spirit stones. Along the way, Tang Ao came across several spirit stone mines. It could be said that what Tang Ao lacked the most right now was cultivation. What he lacked the least was spirit stones. These spirit stone mines were extremely secretive. In the entire Underworld Emperor's secret realm, apart from those with heaven-defying luck, perhaps only Tang Ao, an astral-reaching martial artist reincarnated, could find them. Xia Qinyu looked at the spirit stones that Tang Ao threw around like trash and was inwardly astonished at how Tang Ao had so many spirit stones on him. Even the disciples of the mysterious Yellow 8 sects and the desolate ancient 6 families couldn't carry so many spirit stones on them at all times. right? However, Xia Qinyu didn't ask this question. Everyone had their own secrets. Junior sister Xia, our current cultivation base is too low. Even with divine weapons, we are still not Shu Feiyu's opponent. Let's cultivate here for a while and raise our strength before making any further plans. Tang Ao didn't say anything else after saying this. Instead, he closed his eyes and sat down cross-legged, continuously operating the ancient god moving sky technique to absorb the surrounding spirit power. Along with the ancient god moving sky technique circulation, the mysterious yellow qi in Tang Ao's hidden jade body also began to circulate. The surrounding spirit qi seemed to be attracted by Tang Ao and was unceasingly surging towards Tang Ao. Chapter 669. Tang Ao and Xia Qinyu were cultivating 200 meters below the ground. However, almost everyone was looking for Tang Ao and Xia Qinyu. Wu Ku and the others were looking for Tang Ao because they knew that Tang Ao had the primordial sacred heaven bow. The other warriors were looking for Tang Ao because the rank 9 godly item that Murong Xiao tested was with Tang Ao. One had to know that Murong Xiao's Earth Vein Spirit Marrow was only a rank 2 godly item. However, what Tang Ao had was a rank 9 godly item. The Earth-level spiritual marrow was a treasure that countless people yearned for even in their dreams. As long as a person in the origin realm got a drop of the Earth-level spiritual marrow, their cultivation would increase by a small level. In other words, a first-level origin martial realm warrior could immediately reach the Spirit Sea realm after getting 9 drops of Earth Vein Spirit Marrow. What kind of concept was that? One had to know that most of the warriors on the scene would only reach the 9th level of the origin martial realm after 10 years or even dozens of years. With 10 drops of Earth Vein Spirit Marrow, one would be able to become a Spirit Sea realm warrior after 10 years or even dozens of years of cultivation. Although all the warriors in the Netherworld Emperor's secret realm had successfully reached the Spirit Sea realm, the secret realm only opened once every 10,000 years, and there was a cultivation restriction. It could be said that among everyone present, no one would have the chance to enter the secret realm again after 10,000 years. But even so, such a precious Earth Vein Spirit Marrow was only a rank 2 spirit item. It was hard for everyone to imagine how horrifying the rank 9 spirit item that Tang Ao had was. Although all the warriors knew that everything in the Netherworld Emperor's secret realm belonged to them. However, Tang Ao taking the rank 9 godly item for himself was too selfish in the eyes of many warriors. Even if they obtained a rank 9 godly item, they wouldn't contribute it to others. However, since they couldn't find Tang Ao, it was still very comfortable to scold Tang Ao. Ever since they had learned that Tang Ao possessed a 9th grade divine object, these experts had been searching for Tang Ao throughout the entire snowfield. However, even after so many days had passed, there was still no news of Tang Ao. The news of Tang Ao having a rank 9 godly item was obviously not released by Murong Xiao. Although Murong Xiao knew that if he released the news, all the warriors would try to find Tang Ao. Then, Tang Ao would have nowhere to hide. Once the other warriors found Tang Ao, he would immediately go and kill Tang Ao. Then, not only would the rank 9 godly item be his, Mysterious Mirror would also be his. But Murong Xiao wasn't stupid. Naturally, he wouldn't do such a stupid thing. It was indeed easy to find Tang Ao by mobilizing everyone's power. Moreover, after finding Tang Ao, they could immediately go and kill Tang Ao. At the same time, they could take the treasures on Tang Ao and Xia Qinyu for themselves. But what about after that? Once this was done, all the warriors in the snowfield would know that the treasures on Tang Ao were in their hands. Although Murong Xiao was powerful, once he became the public enemy of the snowfield, it would not be easy for Murong Xiao to leave the snowfield alive. At the same time, even if he could leave the snowfield and return to his family with the rank 9 godly item, what could he do? The Murong family didn't have the final say in the Black-Yellow continent. The Murong family was just one of the 6 great families of the ancient wilderness. Chapter 670. The more precious something was, the more it had to be like this. Tang Ao's ninth grade divine weapon was already precious enough. Hence, if Morong Xiao wanted to take it from Tang Ao, he could only do it secretly. Time passed the fastest when cultivating. Tang Ao and Xia Qinyu's martial Dao talent was not weak. Therefore, after Tang Ao arranged a grade 3 spirit gathering array and took out a lot of spirit stones, Tang Ao and Xia Qinyu's cultivation increased day by day. Ever since entering the Netherworld Emperor Mystic Realm, Tang Ao had been running all over the place. It had been a long time since he had a chance to cultivate. This was a rare opportunity for him to cultivate, and he had no choice but to cultivate. Hence, Tang Ao was prepared to raise his cultivation to the 9th floor of Linghai Jing before leaving. If he could, Tang Ao really wanted to cultivate to the life and death realm before leaving. However, Tang Ao knew that becoming a life and death realm martial artist was not something that could be achieved overnight. Even though he had many spirit stones in his storage ring, becoming a life and death realm martial artist was not something he could achieve just because he wanted to. According to Tang Ao's previous life's cultivation experience, it was possible for him to advance to the 9th floor of Linghai Jing in a short period of time. However, it would be extremely difficult for him to advance to the life and death realm. Moreover, it would not be easy for Tang Ao to advance to the 9th floor of Linghai Jing. Although Tang Ao had many spirit stones on him, and if Tang Ao was willing, he could even set up a 4th grade spirit gathering array. Even so, he would probably need 5 years to break through to the 9th floor of Linghai Jing. Lu Lingxian had made it very clear that Su Ning had been poisoned by the Golden Fong Snake Lord. If she could retrieve the Shinnong grass within a year, Su Ning would naturally be fine. After a year, in Lu Lingxuan's knowledge, no one could save Su Ning. Tang Ao had seen Lu Lingxuan's medical skills before. Tang Ao also knew that Lu Lingxian was not lying. Tang Ao had been trapped in the snowfield for 3 months. Although there were still 9 months left for Tang Ao to search for Shinnong grass, he still had 9 months left. However, even if Tang Ao spent all 9 months cultivating, he would definitely not be able to break through to the 9th floor of Linghai Jing. If he did not break through the 9th floor of Linghai Jing, Tang Ao would not even have the ability to protect himself. How would he be able to find a way to break through? Phew! Tang Ao slowly exhaled a mouthful of turbid air. Although he was safe now, he was still too powerless. Tang Ao felt that he had missed out on something very important, but as for what it was, Tang Ao had no idea. However, Tang Ao also knew that he could not go on like this. If he continued like this, even if he managed to reach the astral reaching realm in 100 years and managed to get out, Su Ning would have been dead for a long time already. Therefore, Tang Ao had to think of a faster training method to break through the 9th floor of Linghai Jing in a shorter time. At the same time, he had to find a way to break through the 3rd level and get to the Shinnong Palace to get the Shinnong grass. As for the inheritance of the Shinnong Emperor, Tang Ao did not think it was that important. As long as he could get the Shinnong grass, he would not mind, even if he did not want the inheritance of the Shinnong Emperor. However, what made Tang Ao feel helpless was that right now, not to mention the inheritance of the Shinnong Emperor, he cannot even think about how to get out of here. Tang Ao could guarantee that as long as he ran into Chu Feiyu and the other 4, he would most likely be killed. Therefore, Tang Ao had to increase his cultivation first before he could think about other things. Rather than increasing his cultivation, it was more like increasing his power. Chapter 671. Tang Ao's Jade Bone Life Spirit was one of a kind in the boundless world. Tang Ao's Battle Saint Bone Life Spirit, Mora Bone Dagger Life Spirit, Green Lotus Sword Spirit, and many others were all extremely powerful and difficult to awaken. Moreover, that was under the condition that Tang Ao did not use the primordial sacred sky bow. If Tang Ao used it, as long as his opponent did not exceed the life and death realm, he could use the primordial sacred sky bow to kill a peak 9th floor of Linghai Jing or even a half-step life and death realm martial artist. However, Tang Ao's current enemy was not a peak ninth floor of Linghai Jing, nor a half-step life and death realm martial artist, but a true life and death realm martial artist. If it was just a life and death realm martial artist, Tang Ao would be able to kill the other party even if he was seriously injured. But Wu Ku and the others were not alone, but there were 5 of them. Even if Tang Ao could kill a life and death realm martial artist, he would definitely fall into the hands of the other 4. Therefore, Tang Ao had to think of all ways to increase his strength. Only when Tang Ao had the strength to deal with a life and death realm martial artist could Tang Ao think about breaking through. In his previous life, when Tang Ao was at the Sea of Souls realm, it only took him half a year to break through to the life and death realm. This did not mean that Tang Ao's talent in his previous life was better than this one, but because Tang Ao had found a 10,000-year spirit spring in his previous life. What kind of existence was a 10,000-year spirit spring? Even the ordinary spring water in a 10,000-year spirit spring was equivalent to the earth-grade earth vein spirit marrow, not to mention that Tang Ao had refined the heart of the spirit spring. Therefore, during that period of time, Tang Ao's cultivation had advanced by leaps and bounds. It only took him half a year to advance from the first level of the Sea of Souls realm to the life and death realm. But now, Tang Ao was not on the black-yellow continent, but in the underworld Emperor's secret realm. Therefore, it was naturally impossible for Tang Ao to find the spirit spring. Furthermore, a fortuitous opportunity like the spirit spring was something that could only be encountered by chance. Many warriors in the black-yellow continent had been searching for the spiritual spring. However, none of them had found it in the end. In addition to the spirit spring, if there was enough earth-grade earth vein spirit marrow, or heaven-grade earth vein spirit marrow, Tang Ao was also confident that he could break through to the life and death realm within half a year. However, these 2 things could only be found by luck. Although Tang Ao knew that Murong Xiao had the earth vein spirit marrow on him, Tang Ao thought that the amount of earth vein spirit marrow on Murong Xiao would not be that big. Therefore, even if Tang Ao robbed Murong Xiao, the amount of earth vein spirit marrow he would get would not be enough for him to reach the life and death realm. Unless Murong Xiao had the heaven-grade earth vein spirit marrow on him. At the thought of this, Tang Ao felt that Murong Xiao might really have the heaven-grade earth vein spirit marrow. If Murong Xiao really had the heaven-grade earth vein spirit marrow, then it would be a different story. However, Tang Ao immediately rejected this idea. That was, Murong Xiao definitely did not have the heaven-grade earth vein spirit marrow on him. In his previous life, Tang Ao had obtained the heaven-grade earth vein spirit marrow when he was in the life and death realm. Tang Ao used the 3 drops of the heaven-grade earth vein spirit marrow to break through 3 levels in the life and death realm. If Murong Xiao really had the heaven-grade earth vein spirit marrow, Murong Xiao would have long been a life and death realm warrior. Not long ago, when Murong Xiao and the other 2 were chasing after Tang Ao, Murong Xiao was still on the 7th floor of Linghai Jing. He definitely had not reached the life and death realm. Otherwise, Tang Ao would have long been killed by Murong Xiao. Although Tang Ao was extremely confident, Tang Ao did not think that he could survive in the hands of a life and death realm warrior. After eliminating the possibility that Murong Xiao had the heaven-grade earth vein spirit marrow, Tang Ao fell into deep thought again. Chapter 672. Otherwise, by the time Tang Ao reached the 9th floor of Linghai Jing in 3 years, Su Ning would have been poisoned to death. Moreover, once the Underworld Emperor Mystic Realm opened, it could teleport warriors out of it at any time. Even if Tang Ao wanted to stay in the Underworld Emperor Mystic Realm to cultivate for 3 years, it would still depend on whether the Underworld Emperor Mystic Realm would allow him to do so. Just as Tang Ao was thinking about how he could reach the 9th floor of Linghai Jing in a short time, Tang Ao suddenly realized that he had made a mistake. He had to cultivate to the 9th floor of Linghai Jing and used the primordial sacred heaven bow to kill Chu Feiyu and the rest before finding the method to clear the third stage of the Shennong ruins. The reason why Tang Ao thought this way was that Tang Ao had always thought that the method to clear the third stage would be on the snowfield and not below it. Thinking of this, Tang Ao subconsciously looked deeper into the ice and snow underground. Tang Ao felt that he had really made a mistake. The most important thing for him now wasn't to cultivate to the 9th floor of Linghai Jing and kill Chu Feiyu and the rest. Instead, he had to clear the third stage as soon as possible and find the Shennong grass in the Shennong ruins to cure Su Ning of the poison. Previously, he had thought of breaking through the realm first and then finding the method to clear the third stage. This was simply putting the cart before the horse. Fortunately, Tang Ao woke up in time. Tang Ao couldn't help but sigh. Even with his temperament, he would also be lost at times like this. If other warriors knew that they were trapped here and not because they didn't want to leave, they would most likely break down. And Tang Ao wasn't wrong at all. Although the treasures on the snowfield were good, this place was a little too strange. Hence, after 3 months, some warriors who had some gains or couldn't stand the snowfield were prepared to leave the Shennong ruins. The warriors who had some gains were already satisfied and felt that this trip was not in vain. Those cultivators who did not gain anything but still retreated felt that the snowfield was too stifling. It was very uncomfortable and dangerous. Therefore, they also decided to leave this place. The Shennong ruins weren't the only place in the Netherworld Emperor Mystic Realm that had treasures. This Shennong ruins was too strange, and everyone wanted to slip away. But soon, the first batch of warriors who were preparing to leave discovered that it was easy for them to enter, but when they wanted to leave, they discovered that there was no way to leave the snowfield. There was no way out of the snowfield. This meant that they were trapped in the snowfield. When they thought of how strange and terrifying the snowfield was, a few weak-willed cultivators instantly collapsed. Their minds became muddled. Moreover, everyone discovered something strange. The warriors inside couldn't get out, but the warriors outside were still pouring in endlessly. When Tang Ao first came in, there were at most 100 people in the snowfield, but now there were at least 1,000 warriors in the snowfield. This snowfield was too vast. 1,000 martial artists on this snowfield was not considered much. However, there were only about 5,000 martial artists who entered the Underworld Emperor Mystic Realm. After such a long time had passed, it was unknown how many warriors had perished. But even so, there were still so many warriors in the snowfield. This was truly an inconceivable thing. Although there were no written rules about which warriors were not allowed to enter the Shennong ruins, there were countless treasures in the Underworld Emperor Mystic Realm. Even if there were many treasures in the Shennong ruins, it shouldn't be enough to attract all the warriors. Chapter 673. Since he couldn't figure it out, Tang Ao decided not to think about it anymore. He had experienced a lot during this period of time, and he had been in a tense state all the time, so his mind was a bit sluggish. Tang Ao thought about it and decided to have a good sleep. When he woke up, he would make a decision. After thinking about it, Tang Ao wrapped himself in the soft fox fur and fell asleep. Tang Ao didn't sleep for long, because his hidden jade body in stone suddenly felt a strange rhythm. When he met Yin Yin for the first time, Tang Ao's hidden jade body in stone had also produced a subtle connection. However, when Tang Ao met Yin Yin again, this subtle connection could not be felt anymore. Although Tang Ao also had the hidden jade body in his previous life and used it to cultivate all the way to the peak of the Black-Yellow continent, becoming a peak astral reaching realm level 9 martial artist. However, the mysteries of the hidden jade body in stone could not be fully explored by Tang Ao even in his previous life. It was just that in this continent, martial artists with the hidden jade body in stone were extremely rare. Moreover, martial artists with the hidden jade body in stone were not outstanding in the early stages of cultivation, and there was nothing special about them. All martial artists in the early stages of cultivation were relatively dangerous. At this time, their strength was low, and without the protection of a martial institution, they could be easily killed while training outside. Therefore, Even if they had the hidden jade body in stone, if they didn't grow up, they would still be worthless. Even Tang Ao couldn't be considered to have fully grown up right now. However, in this life, the martial arts civilization in the black-yellow continent had declined a lot. Not only were there few astral-reaching realm martial artists, but even life and death realm martial artists were also rare. As for the life and death realm martial artists he met before, Tang Ao didn't understand at first. However, later on, Tang Ao understood why the spirit inside their bodies was different from ordinary people. As a peak astral-reaching realm level 9 martial artist in his previous life, Tang Ao's vision was naturally different. Although Tang Ao had never left the black-yellow continent, he knew that there were two other martial continents next to the black-yellow continent. These two martial arts continents were called the Heavenly Sun Continent and the Lingxiao Continent. Although Tang Ao had never been to the Tianyang Continent, he had crossed the Arctic Sea to the Lingxiao Continent. However, the martial arts civilization of the Lingxiao Continent at that time was as backward as the current black-yellow continent. Tang Ao was greatly disappointed and naturally gave up on the idea of going to the Tianyang Continent. Tang Ao had seen warriors from the Soaring Heaven Continent before, so Tang Ao was certain that the group of warriors he saw a few days ago were not from the Soaring Heaven Continent. Since they were not from the Soaring Heaven Continent, they must be from the Tianyang Continent. Why did the warriors from the Tianyang Continent sneak into the Xianhuang Continent? After pondering for a moment, Tang Ao understood why they came to the Black-Yellow Continent. Although the Black-Yellow Continent, Lingxiao Continent, and Tianyang Continent were adjacent to each other, the martial arts civilization and cultivation resources on each continent were different. Among the three continents, the Black-Yellow Continent was second to none in terms of martial arts civilization and cultivation resources 10,000 years ago. As such, there was naturally no problem. But now, although the cultivation resources on the Black-Yellow Continent were second to none, the martial arts civilization on the Xuanhuan Continent seemed to have fallen behind the Tianyang Continent. Chapter 674. Just the inheritance of the Underworld Emperor's secret realm in the Black-Yellow Continent was something that the Heavenly Sun Continent coveted but couldn't possess. Even at the peak of the Heavenly Sun Continent, there were only 9th-level astral-reaching martial artists. There were no existences beyond the astral-reaching realm like the Underworld Emperor or the Shinnong Emperor. Therefore, these 5 life and death martial artists from the Heavenly Sun Continent most likely wanted to kill all the martial artists in the Underworld Emperor's secret realm. The martial artists participating in the Underworld Emperor's secret realm were all elite disciples of various sects in the Black-Yellow Continent. They were the new blood of the continent. If all or most of these martial artists were to perish in the Underworld Emperor's secret realm, it would be a huge blow to the Black-Yellow Continent. It turned out that this was their purpose. Thinking of this, Tang Ao suddenly understood. However, even though Tang Ao understood now, there was nothing he could do. Even if Tang Ao risked his life, he could at most kill a life and death martial artist. However, after Tang Ao killed a life and death martial artist, there were still 4 life and death martial artists left. Right now, the strongest martial artists in the snowfield were Murong Zhao's group. However, in Tang Ao's opinion, even if Murong Zhao's group encountered Chu Feiyu's group, they could only run for their lives. Whether or not they could even run for their lives was still an issue. Just as Tang Ao was thinking about this, Murong Zhao had indeed encountered a white-haired, white-browed man. At this moment, dozens of martial artist corpses were lying beside Murong Zhao and Bai Feng. These dead cultivators were all killed by Bai Feng just now. When Bai Feng appeared, Murong Zhao felt danger. Therefore, Murong Zhao persuaded the group of martial artists to attack Bai Feng together with him. However, Murong Zhao didn't expect Bai Feng to be this powerful. Under their joint attack, not only was he not injured at all, he even killed a group of martial artists with low cultivation bases. At this moment, Murong Zhao was feeling a little relieved. Didn't he just kill a snow monster and obtain 3 drops of heaven-tiered earth vein spiritual marrow? After refining these 3 drops of heaven realm earth vein spirit marrow, Murong Zhao's strength had already reached the half-step life and death realm. Right now, he only needed one opportunity or a short period of time before he could step into the life and death realm. However, what Murong Zhao didn't expect was that he would encounter a life and death realm martial artist before he entered the life and death realm. Judging from your martial arts technique and spiritual power circulation method, you don't seem to be a martial artist from the black-yellow continent. Even though Murong Zhao was shocked by the white-browed man's strength, he still asked with a calm expression. Baifeng didn't expect Murong Zhao to be able to determine that he was a foreign martial artist through his martial skills and spiritual power circulation. However, he already regarded Murong Zhao as a dead man, so he generously admitted it. Yes, I am from the Heaven Sun continent. After Baifeng said that, he said to Murong Zhao in a playful tone, "Are you ready to go? If you have any last words, you can say them." Murong Zhao chuckled and said, "I'm sorry, I still have a use for my life. Goodbye." "You want to leave?" "Not so easy." Baifeng immediately chased after Murong Zhao when he saw that he wanted to run. However, before Baifeng could catch Murong Zhao, a jade talisman in Murong Zhao's hand was crushed. After the jade talisman was crushed, Murong Zhao instantly appeared 300 meters underground. Murong Zhao had been inspired after his first unsuccessful pursuit of Tang Ao. Since Tang Ao could hide in the ice and snow underground when he encountered danger, Baifeng could naturally set up a teleportation array in the ice and snow underground. When he encountered danger, he could immediately teleport over to take refuge. Originally, this was just an invisible move by Murong Zhao, but he didn't expect it to save his life today. Chapter 675. After Murong Zhao escaped underground, Baifeng muttered to himself, "Are the cultivators of the Xianhuang continent all rats?" Previously, that kid called Tang Ao had also burrowed into the ground. Looking at the direction of the transmission array, that kid had also burrowed into the ground. "All right, what's his name again?" Baifeng muttered to himself as he took out a booklet. The booklet didn't introduce spiritual materials or weapons. It introduced the top-notch disciples of the Xianhuang continent sections. On this booklet, there were 1,000 top-notch geniuses in the Xianhuang continent. Of course, more than half of those geniuses had died gloriously. Baifeng opened the booklet. When he flipped to the 9th page, he saw Tang Ao's information. Other than Tang Ao's image, there were also some introductions of Tang Ao. Tang Ao, male, from the Seven Kills sect. Currently, 11 known fate spirits. After reading Tang Ao's introduction, Baifeng murmured he was at the peak of the 9th level of the Origin Martial Realm half a year ago. He only reached the 5th floor of Linghai Jing half a year after coming to the Netherworld Emperor's Secret Realm. How did he rank 6th on the blood kill list? Baifeng seemed to be talking to himself, but from his expression, he seemed to be talking to someone else. However, there was no one around Baifeng. There was no one around him, but someone was really talking to him. Hurry up and check that person's information. That person is much more dangerous than Tang Ao. When he escaped, he didn't use a spatial talisman. He only used a teleportation talisman. It can be seen that he was already prepared. When he encountered danger, he immediately activated the teleportation talisman and went to a safe place. Although there was no one around, Baifeng still knew who he was talking to. Senior Mo Gu is right. Tang Ao is only a cultivator from the 5th floor of Linghai Jing, but that guy's half a step into the life and death realm. Moreover, he is very scheming and prepared a method to escape in advance. After Baifeng finished speaking, he continued to flip through the book. The atlas was called the Blood Kill List. The Blood Kill List was not designated by the people of the Tianyang continent, but by the people of the Black-Yellow continent. The fact that they were able to draw up the Blood Kill List meant that they were involved in every sect. However, Baifeng wasn't interested. After checking Tang Ao's introduction, he flipped to the 38th page and saw Murong Zhao's introduction. Murong Zhao's introduction was similar to Tang Ao's, but Murong Zhao's introduction was more detailed than Tang Ao's. After all, Tang Ao had risen like a shooting star in the 7 Kills sect for less than 3 years. Before this blood kill list was completed, Tang Ao would have already entered the Netherworld Emperor Mystic Realm. However, Murong Xiao was different. Murong Xiao was a descendant of the Murong clan and had been an exceptionally eye-catching existence since he was young. Therefore, Murong Xiao's information was more than 5 times more detailed than Tang Ao's. Even the cultivation techniques that Murong Xiao might have cultivated, the martial techniques that he might have mastered, and even the life spirits that Murong Xiao had awakened were all recorded. Moreover, there were many battle records and fighting styles of Murong Xiao. After casually skimming through it, Bai Feng closed the booklet. Then, Bai Feng said to Mo Gu, who was hiding in the dark, "Senior Mo Gu, first senior brother told us to each take charge of one area. You can't just follow me like this." Even though Bai Feng knew that Mo Gu was around, he didn't know where Mo Gu was hiding. Mo Gu had no intention of answering Bai Feng's question. Chapter 676. Tang Ao made a careful comparison. Tang Ao discovered that his current location was not only not a snowfield on Lu Lingshuan's map, but a palace. Moreover, this should be where the Shinnong Emperor's palace was located. However, Tang Ao had been in this snowfield for a long time, but he had not seen any palace. Furthermore, there were so many martial artists in the snowfield. If there really was an emperor palace here, some martial artists would have discovered it. However, the reality was that not a single martial artist had discovered this so-called Shinnong Emperor's palace. If it wasn't on the snowfield, could it be underground? Tang Ao thought of this possibility, and Tang Ao felt that it was reasonable. The surface of a snowfield would not suppress a martial artist's soul power. Therefore, with the soul power of over 1,000 martial artists, no matter how hidden the Shinnong Emperor's palace was, it would not be able to hide. However, it was different under the snowfield. Even a life and death realm martial artist would not be able to use their soul power beyond 1,000 feet. Furthermore, the space under the snowfield was not any smaller than the surface of the snowfield. Furthermore, most martial artists' soul power would be suppressed under the snowfield. It was rare for a martial artist like Tang Ao to be able to use his soul power under the snowfield. Therefore, if the Shinnong Emperor's palace was really under the snowfield, it was not impossible that no martial artist had discovered it. After all, soul power could not be used in this underground snow, so one could only observe with the naked eye. However, with the naked eye, one could only see the area where he had broken through the snow. The other areas were still blocked by a thick layer of snow, making it impossible to see. At a depth of 2,000 feet, Tang Ao could not use his soul power. In this place, Tang Ao could only release his soul power 1 inch away from the surface of his body before it would be suppressed. This was because Tang Ao's soul power had advanced to the life and death realm. If Tang Ao's soul power was still on the 9th floor of Linghai Jing, he would not be able to release his soul power 2,000 feet underground. Although Tang Ao could only release his soul power 1 inch away from the surface of his body, it was still a great help to Tang Ao. In a duel between martial artists, most of the time, they relied on soul power to capture and evade the opponent's martial techniques. If a martial artist could not even release a little soul power, his strength would definitely be greatly reduced. Just like in this snowfield, if Wu could dare to chase him down, Tang Ao had at least a 50% chance of killing him. However, if Tang Ao fought with Wu Ku on the snowfield, Tang Ao would only have a 10% chance of killing Wu Ku with the help of the primordial sacred heavenly bow. When Tang Ao thought of the possibility that the Shinnong Emperor Palace was in the snowfield, he took out the animal skin scroll. At this moment, Xia Qinyu's peach blossom fire was still suspended between Tang Ao and Xia Qinyu. Waves of warm aura sprinkled on Tang Ao like sunlight. And in the conversation or the scorching heat, the surrounding cold air was also dispersed. In the area where Tang Ao and Xia Qinyu were resting, there was no cold air that could penetrate. After Xia Qinyu adjusted her breath, she saw that Tang Ao had been staring at the animal skin scroll. Xia Qinyu asked curiously, "Senior brother Tang Ao, what is this?" "This is the map of the Shinnong ruins." Tang Ao did not hide anything from Xia Qinyu. Now, Xia Qinyu and him could be considered friends in times of adversity. Not long ago, when Tang Ao encountered Chu Feiyu and the others, if he and Xia Qinyu had not worked together, he would not have escaped from Chu Feiyu and the others. Chapter 677. Tang Ao didn't know that Xia Qinyu had thought so far ahead. If he had known, Tang Ao would have explained to Xia Qinyu that this map hadn't come from the Netherworld Emperor's mystic realm 10,000 years ago. It had been given to him by Lu Lingxian not too long ago. At this moment, Tang Ao was still comparing the map with what he had seen and heard. On the map, the snowy plains that Tang Ao and the others were in was where the Shinnong Emperor Palace was located. But now, besides the vast snowy plains, Tang Ao didn't even see a shadow of the Shinnong Emperor Palace. After her initial shock, Xia Qinyu asked carefully, "Senior brother Tang Ao, can I take a look at this map?" The Shinnong Ruins map was too precious. Even though Xia Qinyu and Tang Ao had a good relationship, Xia Qinyu didn't dare to take a look without Tang Ao's permission. Tang Ao hadn't expected Xia Qinyu to be so reserved. He said casually, "Junior sister Xia, feel free to take a look." Tang Ao handed the animal hide over to Xia Qinyu and fell into deep thought. According to Lu Lingxian, she had been trapped in the Shinnong Ruins for over 100 years. She had always been in the periphery of the Shinnong Ruins, so there shouldn't be any problems with this map. If there was a problem with this map, it would be very difficult for Lu Lingxian to survive in the Shinnong Ruins for hundreds of years. Xia Qinyu looked at it for a while before letting out a soft cry. "Junior sister Xia, did you discover anything?" If Xia Qinyu really discovered something, Tang Ao might be able to leave this place or find the Shinnong Emperor Palace. "Senior brother Tang Ao, according to the map, the area we are in now is where the Shinnong Emperor Palace is. However, there isn't anything around here." Tang Ao secretly thought that Xia Qinyu was really meticulous. After looking at the animal hide for a while, she had discovered the problem. Moreover, Tang Ao had been too puzzled to realize that the area they were in was where the Shinnong Emperor Palace was. However, this animal hide was a map after all. Hence, Tang Ao had no way of knowing where the Shinnong Emperor Palace was. If there's no problem with this map, the Shinnong Dharch Palace isn't on the snowfield. It's under the snowfield, Tang Ao guessed after knowing that the Shinnong Dharch Palace might be nearby. "Senior brother Tang Ao, I don't think it's on the snowy plains. If the Shinnong Emperor Palace is on the snowy plains, then with so many warriors there, it is impossible Shinnong Emperor Shinnong Palace would be found. Find it. So I'm thinking, could the Shinnong Imperial Palace be down here?" As Xia Qinyu spoke, she looked deeper into the ground. "Junior sister Xia, I think the Shinnong Emperor Palace is very likely to be below. It's just that the stone tablet at the entrance of a Shinnong relic says that there are 3 levels in the Shinnong relic. However, this should only be the 3rd level. Why did the Shinnong Emperor Palace appear before the 3rd level is passed?" Tang Ao voiced out his doubts. "I don't know, but I think the Shinnong Emperor Palace seems to be below." Faced with Tang Ao's doubts, Xia Qinyu did not know, so she could only speak her thoughts. "In that case, why don't we go down and have a look?" Even though Tang Ao had the sky polar eyes, when Tang Ao used the sky polar eyes to peek at the snow below, Tang Ao could only see about 100 feet of snow. The further down he went, the more blurred the sky polar eyes became. Tang Ao knew that this was not the effect of the surrounding strange snow, but the effect of the special array in this space. Chapter 678. Of course, there was another possibility, which was that the successor that the Shinnong Emperor was looking for was a martialist with the sky polar eyes. Thinking of this, Tang Ao felt that it was very possible. Although Tang Ao's strength did not make a breakthrough during this period of seclusion, his soul power had broken through to the life and death realm. Coupled with the insights he had gained during this period of time, Tang Ao had comprehended a new usage of the extreme sky pupils. He could use the sky polar eyes to summon an extreme frost barrier. This barrier could be used to defend against a martialist attacks, and also to defend against the cold chi. Although Tang Ao had never used the extreme cold cover before, Tang Ao could faintly feel that he could use the extreme cold cover to reach the bottom of the snowfield. Senior brother Tang Ao, let's go take a look together. After Tang Ao made his decision, Xia Qinyu also decided to go underground with Tang Ao. All right. Although this peach blossom fire is not the best flame in the world, it should be able to support us underground. If the peach blossom fire cannot support us underground, you can wait for me above. I can use the sky polar eyes to go underground, but I'm not proficient with it yet, so I cannot bring you down. Hearing Tang Ao say that the peach blossom fire should be able to support the two of them underground, Xia Qinyu was a little nervous. She was worried that she could not help Tang Ao go underground. After all, after meeting Tang Ao in the snowfield, Tang Ao had been taking care of her. Therefore, if she could not help Tang Ao, Xia Qinyu would feel very disappointed. Fortunately, hearing that Tang Ao could use the sky polar eyes, Xia Qinyu said happily, Senior brother Tang Ao, since you can use the sky polar eyes, I will wait for you here. Tang Ao and Xia Qinyu had been together for a long time, so he naturally knew what Xia Qinyu was thinking. However, Tang Ao still said, Junior martial sister Xia, how about this? You use the peach blossom fire to protect yourself, and I'll use the heavenly polar eyes to block the cold air. We'll go down and take a look together. This Shinong Emperor is very likely an expert who has surpassed the astral reaching realm. In his inheritance ruins, there will certainly be many opportunities. Xia Qinyu looked at Tang Ao in surprise after hearing what Tang Ao said. If she hadn't known Tang Ao for a long time and knew that Tang Ao wouldn't speak without thinking, Xia Qinyu would have suspected that Tang Ao was lying to her. Warriors who have surpassed the astral reaching realm? What realm is that? As far as Xia Qinyu knew, astral reaching realm martial artists were already legendary existences. As for martial artists who had surpassed the astral reaching realm, they did not even exist in legends. If Xia Qinyu knew that Tang Ao, who was right next to her, was a reincarnated astral reaching realm martial artist, how would she feel? However, Tang Ao did not plan to tell Xia Qinyu about this. So what if he was a reincarnated astral reaching realm martial artist? Right now, he was still being forced to hide in a snow cave by a few life and death realm ants. Tang Ao shook his head. As for what was above the astral reaching realm, Tang Ao also did not have an answer. However, Tang Ao had trained to the peak of astral reaching realm level 9 in his previous life, so he naturally knew that astral reaching realm level 9 was not the end of the martial Tao. Moreover, Tang Ao felt that the peak of astral reaching realm level 9 was not the end of the martial Tao and might not even be counted as half of it. However, right now, Tang Ao did not have any evidence to prove his words, and even Tang Ao himself was not very clear about it. Therefore, Tang Ao did not say these thoughts out loud. Chapter 679. After deciding to explore deeper underground, Tang Ao didn't waste any more time. Tang Ao immediately closed his eyes and started to use his sky polar eyes. As Tang Ao used his sky polar eyes, a blue transparent light shield enveloped Tang Ao. Although this light shield was called the extreme cold shield, neither Xia Qinyu, who was outside, nor Tang Ao, who was inside, felt the slightest chill from the extreme cold shield. Tang Ao was surprised by the uniqueness of the extreme cold shield, but Tang Ao was sure that there were no problems. This was indeed the extreme cold shield. However, Tang Ao was also puzzled. This extreme cold shield didn't seem to have any chill at all. However, Tang Ao and Xia Qinyu didn't notice that after Tang Ao's extreme cold shield appeared, the peach blossom flame that was quietly burning at the side trembled. Although Tang Ao felt that this extreme cold shield was a little strange, Tang Ao didn't doubt the ability of the extreme cold shield. This was because after he was protected by the extreme cold shield, Tang Ao really couldn't feel the cold outside at all. Junior sister Xia, get ready. We are leaving. Oh, okay. After Xia Qinyu finished speaking, With a move of her mind, she copied Tang Ao's actions and condensed a fire shield around her. After that, Xia Qinyu and Tang Ao looked at each other. Then they went underground together. At first, Tang Ao and Xia Qinyu didn't notice anything unusual. It was only after they went more than 10 feet underground that Xia Qinyu's peach blossom flame flickered. Even so, the peach blossom flame was still able to protect Xia Qinyu from the surrounding chill. As for Tang Ao, he didn't feel anything at all in the extreme cold shield. Tang Ao also saw the changes in the peach blossom flame. Just now, Tang Ao was a little worried that the peach blossom flame wouldn't be able to protect Xia Qinyu to the depths of the earth. He didn't expect that the peach blossom flame would change after just a few dozen feet. Fortunately, although the peach blossom fire had changed, it could still protect Xia Qinyu from the surrounding cold air. Therefore, Tang Ao and Xia Qinyu continued to descend. After the two of them had descended a distance of 200 zhong, the peach blossom flame flashed with increasing frequency. Although the peach blossom flame was still able to isolate the surrounding cold energy, Tang Ao could not help but sigh helplessly. Although the peach blossom fire wasn't one of the strongest flames in the world, it was still above average among the strange flames in the world. But in this underground ice and snow, the peach blossom fire was so weak. The two of them had only traveled 200 feet, and the peach blossom fire was already unable to withstand the surrounding cold air. While sighing at the peach blossom fire's weakness, Tang Ao was also secretly surprised at the power of the extreme cold shield. This was because at this moment, Tang Ao didn't feel any changes in the extreme cold shield. Now, the extreme cold shield didn't fluctuate at all. If it wasn't for the fact that Tang Ao wasn't proficient in using the extreme cold shield, Tang Ao really wanted to expand the extreme cold shield and use it to protect Xia Qinyu. However, although Tang Ao could use the sky polar eyes, Tang Ao was still a warrior with the sky polar eyes. Therefore, after Tang Ao comprehended the extreme cold shield, no matter how hard Tang Ao tried, the extreme cold shield could only protect himself. If he wanted to use the extreme cold shield to protect himself and Xia Qinyu at the same time, Tang Ao still didn't have the ability to do so. Even if he used the extreme cold shield to protect Xia Qinyu alone, Tang Ao wouldn't be able to do it. Chapter 680. After seeing Xia Qinyu's condition, Tang Ao said to Xia Qinyu, "Junior sister Xia, it looks like the peach blossom fire can't protect you any further. Why don't you wait for me at the previous place? I'll continue to investigate." Xia Qinyu nodded. When it descended to a distance of 400 feet, the peach blossom fire kept sending out thoughts to stop Xia Qinyu. It was obvious that the peach blossom fire was having a hard time at 400 feet. After 500 feet, the peach blossom fire had reached its limit. "Senior brother Tang Ao, be careful. I'll go up first." After Xia Qinyu finished speaking, she hurried towards the snow cave that the two of them had been hiding in. The peach blossom fire was able to move easily at a depth of 600 feet under the snowfield. After Xia Qinyu went up, Tang Ao continued to go down. Under the protection of the extreme cold shield, Tang Ao was now 280 feet under the snowfield. At this depth, Tang Ao's extreme cold shield also changed. Tang Ao could clearly feel that the spiritual power flowing on the extreme cold shield had slowed down. Even so, Tang Ao decided that the extreme cold shield was very impressive. The peach blossom fire was an above-average flame among the mystical flames in the world. However, the peach blossom flame could no longer endure after reaching a distance of 250 zhong. On the other hand, the extreme cold barrier only showed some changes when it was 2,800 feet underground, and it was far from reaching its limit. Tang Ao didn't care about the changes of the extreme cold shield and continued to go down. As Tang Ao continued to go deeper, even though Tang Ao was inside the extreme cold shield, Tang Ao still felt a trace of cold air. This cold air had forcefully seeped in under the cover of the extreme cold shield. After the cold air seeped in, the spiritual power in Tang Ao's body became a little sluggish. Even after sensing his own situation, Tang Ao still didn't have any thoughts of retreating. It was dangerous for Tang Ao to have such a situation with his spiritual force. However, Tang Ao still hadn't seen the Shinnong Emperor Palace, nor had he come to the bottom of the snowfield. So Tang Ao wanted to continue to investigate, but Tang Ao's speed gradually slowed down. Finally, when Tang Ao was 400 feet under the snowfield, the blue extreme cold shield was full of cracks, as if it was going to break at any time. At this time, Tang Ao also knew that he was at his limit. If he continued to go down, the extreme cold shield would soon break. Even with the protection of the extreme cold barrier, Tang Ao still felt a bone-chilling cold. This chill seems to have frozen Tang Ao's bone marrow. Tang Ao's eyebrows and hair also have a layer of white frost. The cold air seemed to freeze Tang Ao's bones. A layer of frost appeared on Tang Ao's eyebrows and hair. Tang Ao closed his eyes and felt the situation in his body. He couldn't help but laugh bitterly. After the cold energy invaded his meridians, the spiritual energy in Tang Ao's body froze, making it hard for him to circulate it. After the cold air invaded his meridians, the spiritual power in Tang Ao's body seemed to be frozen, and it was extremely difficult to circulate. If it was something else, Tang Ao would have retreated. No matter how good the treasure was, he needed to be alive to enjoy it. But this time, Tang Ao didn't come to the Shinnong Emperor Palace to search for treasure. He came to the Shinnong Emperor Palace to find the Shinnong grass to save Su Ning. Chapter 681. Tang Ao could not believe what he was seeing. As an astral-reaching realm level 9 warrior in his previous life, Tang Ao was definitely not someone who was ignorant. Tang Ao had been to many top-notch sects in his previous life, but even the boldness of these top-notch sects paled in comparison to the Shinnong Emperor Palace. Until then, Tang Ao had finally realized that Lu Lingshuan's map was not wrong. On Lu Lingshuan's map, the Shinnong Emperor's palace was in this area. However, the beast skin scroll that Lu Lingxian had given to Tang Ao was only a flat map. Therefore, Tang Ao did not know that the Shinnong Emperor's palace was hidden under this extremely cold and horrifying snowfield. Although the discovery of the Shinnong Emperor's palace had made Tang Ao very excited, this excitement was soon suppressed by the problem in front of him. The Shinnong Emperor's palace was right under this snowfield. From where Tang Ao was standing right now, he only needed to travel 100 meters to reach it. Normally, the sky polar pupil would be suppressed more the further down one went. However, after Tang Ao arrived here, he realized that the sky polar pupil could actually see through 100 meters of ice and snow. Even if Tang Ao used the sky polar pupil to look up, he could only see about 200 meters of ice and snow. Right then, Tang Ao had too many questions in his mind. But Tang Ao also knew that these questions were not the main point right now. The most important thing now was to find a way to get down to the Shinnong Emperor's palace and get the Shinnong grass from the Shinnong Emperor's palace to cure Su Ning. However, Tang Ao realized that with his current power and skills, it would be impossible for him to get down to the Shinnong Emperor's palace. Even though the sky polar eyes could see through the ice and snow 1,000 feet deep, Tang Ao knew that the remaining 1,000 feet of ice and snow would only get colder and colder with every step he took. At this moment, Tang Ao's extreme cold shield was already filled with cracks. Without a doubt, if Tang Ao continued to walk down, this extreme cold shield would definitely shatter. If he didn't go down to the Shinnong Emperor's palace, he wouldn't be able to get the Shinnong grass. If he went down to the Shinnong Emperor's palace, the extreme cold shield wouldn't be able to withstand it. For a moment, Tang Ao was in a situation where he had a headache. For the sake of Su Ning, he had to go to the Shinnong Emperor Palace. But now, with the strength of the extreme cold shield, it obviously couldn't support him to enter the Shinnong Emperor Palace smoothly. If the Shinnong Emperor Palace was 300 feet or even 500 feet deep, Tang Ao could grit his teeth and try. But now, the Shennong Emperor Palace was 1,000 feet deep. This made Tang Ao feel helpless. If it was 300 feet or even 500 feet, he could grit his teeth and persevere for a while. But 1,000 feet deep, Tang Ao felt that it wasn't grit his teeth and persevere for a while. Instead, he would be sending himself to his death. Tang Ao had to go to the Shennong Emperor Palace. As for how to get there, he had to think about it carefully. Tang Ao thought of an idea now, which was to let Xia Qinyu use the peach blossom flame to protect him. When the extreme cold shield couldn't withstand it, he could stare at the peach blossom flame and continue to descend. But Tang Ao quickly rejected this idea. If the extreme cold shield couldn't withstand it, how long could the peach blossom flame last? If he wanted to borrow the protection of this strange flame to reach the Shennong Emperor Palace, he would need a flame that was of a higher grade than the peach blossom flame. It was rumored that the Netherworld Emperor had a kind of immortal dark flame. It was one of the best among all the strange flames in the world. If Tang Ao could obtain this flame, he might be able to descend to the Shennong Emperor Palace. But Tang Ao had been in the Netherworld Emperor mystic realm for so long, but he hadn't even seen the shadow of the immortal dark flame. Chapter 682. If Tang Ao came to the Shennong ruins just to obtain the inheritance of the Shennong Emperor, Tang Ao would retreat without hesitation. Although the inheritance of the Shennong Emperor was good, his strength was not enough to enter the Shennong Emperor's palace. However, Tang Ao was confident that if he broke through the life and death realm, he would definitely be able to enter the Shennong Emperor's palace. However, Tang Ao didn't come to the Shennong Emperor's palace for himself, but for Su Ning. Therefore, even though Tang Ao didn't know when he could break through the life and death realm, Tang Ao didn't plan to retreat. After thinking for a moment, Tang Ao made an absolute decision. That was to recover his spiritual power on the spot, and then enter the Shennong Emperor's palace in one go. Tang Ao thought again because Tang Ao could clearly see with the help of the sky polar pupils that there was no abnormal ice and snow in the Shennong Emperor's palace. This meant that the Shennong Emperor's palace was definitely not so cold. Therefore, as long as he could enter the Shennong Emperor's palace in one go, this matter would be half a success. The reason why it was half a success was because after Tang Ao got the Shennong grass, he still had to go back the way he came. Since he was going back the way he came, he naturally had to pass through the horrifying ice and snow again. After calming himself down, Tang Ao sat down cross-legged and began to meditate. After traveling 2,000 feet to the original position, the spiritual power in Tang Ao's body was almost exhausted. If Tang Ao went back, it would be fine. If Tang Ao wanted to go deeper, he had to recover his spiritual power. Tang Ao took out a pile of spiritual stones and placed them beside him. Then, he used the ancient God-moving sky technique and began to absorb and refine the spiritual power and the surrounding spiritual power. Tang Ao had a lot of spiritual stones in his storage ring, but Tang Ao didn't care about these spiritual stones. Although these spirit stones were piled up like a mountain, they were all low-grade spirit stones. Currently, the black-yellow continent's martial Dao was lagging behind, and the cultivation resources were also poor. 10,000 years ago, other than some warriors who had just started out, even Origin Realm warriors used mid-rank spirit stones to cultivate. But in this life, even if Tang Ao cultivated to the Sea of Souls realm, he could only use low-rank spirit stones to cultivate. This was not because there were no middle-grade spirit stones in the black-yellow continent, but because they were too rare. As for the upper spiritual stones that were above the middle spiritual stones, they were even more pitiful. As for top-quality spirit stones, Tang Ao estimated that there was an 80% chance that he did not have any more. The higher the grade of a spirit stone, the more complete the spirit artifact and heaven and earth laws contained within it. It was very beneficial to a martial artist cultivation. Unfortunately, even though Tang Ao had joined the Seven Kills sect, a top-notch sect in the Black-Yellow continent, There didn't seem to be any middle-grade spirit stones in the Seven Kills sect. Actually, there were still some middle-grade spirit stones in the Seven Kills sect. It was just that these middle-grade spirit stones have been used up in the past few years. If these middle-grade spirit stones were given to one person among the 5 of Tang Ao's group, these middle-grade spirit stones would still be useful. However, if Tang Ao's group of 5 was given some middle-grade spirit stones to each of them, these middle-grade spirit stones would be almost useless. Chapter 683. If he was an ordinary martial artist, no matter how talented he was, he would not cause such a huge commotion when he cultivated. However, Tang Ao had the invisible jade and stone body, so how could an ordinary martial artist be compared to him? In less than half an hour, the spirit stones around Tang Ao had all turned into ashes. After using up tens of thousands of low-grade spirit stones, Tang Ao's spiritual power had recovered by 60%. This time, Tang Ao wanted to enter the Shinnong Emperor's palace in his best condition, so he naturally would not be stingy with spirit stones. Moreover, to the current Tang Ao, these low-grade spirit stones did not matter to Tang Ao. Tang Ao casually took out tens of thousands of spirit stones from his storage ring. These spirit stones floated around Tang Ao, and when Tang Ao used his cultivation technique, they all turned into ashes. After using up so many spirit stones, Tang Ao's spiritual power also quickly recovered. After another half an hour, Tang Ao's spiritual power and soul power were full again. After slowly exhaling a mouthful of turbid air, Tang Ao stood up. Looking at the broken extreme cold cover, Tang Ao's sky polar eyes focused, and the cracks on the extreme cold cover instantly recovered under the support of Tang Ao's strong spiritual power. The reason why Tang Ao wanted to go to the underground Shinnong Emperor's palace in one go was because of the extreme cold cover, not because he was hot-blooded. However, although the extreme cold cover was strong, Tang Ao also knew that it would not be able to protect him from rushing into the underground palace. Even so, Tang Ao still wanted to give it a try. If it did not try, how would he know if it would work? After making up his mind, Tang Ao immediately went down into the ice and snow below. At his current position, Tang Ao's extreme cold cover was already very difficult. After Tang Ao went down, cracks appeared on the extreme cold cover again. These ice cracks appeared on the extreme cold shield. Every time a crack appeared, a trace of cold air seeped into the extreme cold shield. This cold chi was extremely powerful. Just a few strands of cold chi seeped in, but Tang Ao's meridians were actually frozen to the point of pain. Even Tang Ao's skin cracked from the cold. After Tang Ao's skin cracked open, the jade bone life soul in Tang Ao's body left and produced countless pale green spots of light. These spots of light constantly flickered around Tang Ao's body as they constantly healed the frostbite on Tang Ao's body. Tang Ao kept pushing the extreme cold shield down for 500 feet. Tang Ao knew that the extreme cold shield was about to reach its limit. Right now, the extreme cold shield was full of cracks, and it looked like it would shatter at any moment. Even though he knew that the extreme cold shield couldn't hold on much longer, Tang Ao still didn't dare to stop. He only had one chance. Since he was already halfway down, Tang Ao naturally wouldn't return empty-handed. After Tang Ao traveled another 300 feet, a crisp cracking sound rang out. Tang Ao's heart jumped. The extreme cold shield had shattered. Tang Ao scanned it with his soul power. The extreme cold shield was indeed broken. Now, the extreme cold shield was riddled with holes. Many places had completely shattered. Not only the cold chi, but the surrounding ice and snow were also squeezing in. Tang Ao's entire body trembled with spiritual power. At the same time, flames started burning in Tang Ao's meridians. This wasn't a martial technique, nor was it a secret technique. It was a method of burning blood essence. After supporting the extreme cold shield to this point, Tang Ao's spiritual power was almost depleted. However, Tang Ao also knew that he definitely couldn't give up now. He had to fight with his life on the line. Otherwise, he could forget about entering the Shinnong Emperor's palace. Chapter 684. If it wasn't for the fact that Tang Ao's meridians were already extremely tough, Tang Ao's meridians would have been frozen into nothingness. Other than his meridians, Tang Ao felt that his limbs and bones were covered in a layer of ice, and his consciousness was starting to blur. Tang Ao hurriedly bit the tip of his tongue, trying his best to keep himself awake. If he lost consciousness in a place like this, he would lose consciousness forever. Under Tang Ao's desperate situation, Tang Ao was only 2 to 3 feet away from the Shinnong Emperor Palace. If it was a normal day, Tang Ao would be able to cross this distance with a light leap. But now, in Tang Ao's eyes, this distance was like a natural chasm that was difficult to cross. At this moment, the extreme cold barrier that Tang Ao summoned with the heavenly polar eyes had completely shattered, and Tang Ao was also wrapped in the surrounding ice and snow. Tang Ao's spiritual and soul power were almost depleted. Although the heavenly polar eyes was powerful, it had always been a method that consumed a lot of spiritual and soul power. While Tang Ao was braving the extreme cold barrier, almost 99% of Tang Ao's spiritual and soul power was consumed by the heavenly polar eyes. Looking at the Shinnong Emperor Palace in front of him, and his limbs and bones that were gradually losing consciousness, Tang Ao's heart hardened. With a roar, Tang Ao's body was immediately wrapped in a ball of flames. This time, Tang Ao didn't hold back as he started to burn his blood essence. He had to break through this barrier and reach the Shinnong Emperor Palace. After Tang Ao started to burn his blood essence, Tang Ao's limbs and bones gradually regained some strength. Tang Ao didn't dare to hesitate, and once again dove downwards. This distance of 2 to 3 feet, Tang Ao seemed to be closing in inch by inch. Finally, after Tang Ao broke the last layer of ice, Tang Ao completely broke out of the ice and entered the Shinnong Emperor Palace. And the Shinnong Emperor Palace was indeed as Tang Ao imagined. There was no terrifying cold air here. After breaking the last layer of ice, Tang Ao directly fell from the height of the Shinnong Emperor Palace. At this moment, Tang Ao had almost no spiritual power to protect his body, and there were many injuries on his body. If he was allowed to fall to the ground like this, Tang Ao would most likely fall to his death. Tang Ao had gone through a lot of hardships to get to the Shinnong Emperor Palace. If he felt his death at the last step, Tang Ao wouldn't be able to rest in peace. After falling halfway, Tang Ao felt that the spiritual power in his body seemed to have recovered. Tang Ao was overjoyed and immediately used this trace of spiritual power to summon the Battle Sage Bone Life Soul. After summoning the Battle Sage Bone Life Soul, Tang Ao completely fainted. Now, not only was Tang Ao's spiritual power and soul power exhausted, but his body was also injured in many places. He had reached his limit. After Tang Ao fainted, he also fell to the ground from midair. The violent impact also woke up the unconscious Tang Ao. At this moment, Tang Ao's long black hair had turned white due to the excessive consumption of blood essence. But Tang Ao didn't care. He desperately burned his blood essence this time. It was fortunate that he didn't run out of oil. This head of white hair would naturally improve after his strength recovered. Tang Ao barely supported himself to sit up, and then he adjusted his breath while looking around. Although this Shinnong Emperor Palace was hidden underground, it was magnificent like a vast, immortal palace. Chapter 685. Tang Ao scanned the surroundings with his soul power. After confirming that there was no danger, Tang Ao threw out a pile of soul stones from his storage ring, then focused on recovering his power. Now that the most difficult part had passed, Tang Ao had to maintain his peak condition in order to explore the Shinnong Emperor Palace. Tang Ao had a premonition that this Shinnong Emperor was an existence that had surpassed the astral reaching realm. This kind of powerful existence, even if he had fallen, was not something that Tang Ao, a mere sea of souls realm warrior, could ignore. Tang Ao had two guesses before. These arrangements in the Shinnong ruins had two purposes. The first goal was to select the most outstanding martial artist from the crowd to carry out the possession. After reaching the astral reaching realm, the warrior would be able to keep his soul intact even if his body was damaged. As long as there was a suitable target, he would be able to revive at any time. And what Tang Ao was facing right now was indeed an existence that had surpassed the astral reaching realm. Therefore, Tang Ao had no choice but to be cautious. The second purpose was that the Shinnong Emperor really wanted to find an excellent inheritor. Therefore, he had set up a lot of tests to see if there was a warrior that could pass the tests and come to the Shinnong Emperor Palace. Tang Ao hoped that the Shinnong Emperor would set up the Shinnong Emperor Palace for the second reason. This way, he would be considered a warrior that had passed the tests of the Shinnong Emperor and would be able to accept the inheritance of the Shinnong Emperor. As for the inheritance of the Shinnong Emperor, Tang Ao was not that desperate. The inheritance of a powerful warrior was nothing more than cultivation experience and martial arts. However, Tang Ao himself was the reincarnation of an astral-reaching realm level 9 warrior, and his martial art was the ancient god-moving sky art, a heaven-defying martial art. Therefore, before Tang Ao reached the peak of astral-reaching realm level 9, his cultivation experience would not be of use. As for cultivation techniques, Tang Ao believed that even a top-notch expert like the Shinnong Emperor might not be able to match up to his ancient god-moving sky technique. When Tang Ao arrived at the Shinnong Emperor's palace, a massacre was taking place on the snowfield. Against Chu Feiyu's group, warriors like Tang Ao and Murong Xiao, who had some tricks up their sleeves, were lucky to survive. However, for the other warriors on the snowfield, once they encountered Chu Feiyu's group, they would definitely die. The ones who were stopped by Wu Ku were Wen Qim's group. Feng Ling was the girl who had been with Yin not long ago. Back then, Yin had been heavily injured by Mo Gu, and after he had fainted, Feng Ling had saved him. Feng Ling and the others were not very strong. Almost all of them were at the third level of the spiritual ocean realm. This kind of strength was already at the lowest level in the current snowfield. However, after Yin was injured last time, he also obtained some opportunities. Now that he had recovered, he was already a peak-level warrior of the 9th floor of Linghai Jing. Even though he had reached the peak of the 9th floor of Linghai Jing, he was still very nervous after being stopped by Wu Ku. If he wanted to, he could immediately use his escape technique to escape. However, Yin knew that he could not escape. Once he did, Feng Ling and the others would die for sure. Just as Yin was hesitating, Feng Ling suddenly yelled, "Brother Yin, don't worry about us. You should run. If you stay here, none of us will survive. Why not wait until you become stronger and take revenge for us?" Among this group of people, besides Feng Ling, Yin did not want anyone else to die here. This was a group of kind-hearted warriors. However, Yin also knew that he was not Wu Ku's opponent. Yin was very regretful. He had obtained a broken jade stone, but before he could use it, he would die here today. Chapter 686. Inside the Shinnong Emperor Palace, Tang Ao adjusted his breathing for 2 hours. After consuming tens of thousands of soul stones, Tang Ao's consumed soul power and spirit power had finally recovered. However, the essence blood that Tang Ao had consumed would not be able to recover in a short period of time. However, after recovering his Yuan Qi, Tang Ao's hair was no longer completely white. Instead, there were a few strands of black hair mixed within the white hair. Moreover, as Tang Ao's Yuan Qi recovered, the white hair also slowly turned black. Tang Ao did not care about the white hair. He had the Jade Bone life spirit. As long as he did not die, no matter how serious his injuries were, the Jade Bone life spirit would be able to save him. After recovering his strength, Tang Ao also walked towards the main hall of the Xinnong Emperor Palace. As Tang Ao approached, Tang Ao felt a vast and distant pressure coming towards him. Feeling this pressure, Tang Ao's expression immediately changed. This kind of vast pressure made Tang Ao feel as if he was looking up at the vast starry sky, lamenting his own insignificance. Tang Ao was a 9th-level astral reaching realm warrior in his previous life. Therefore, he naturally knew that this pressure had already surpassed the scope of astral reaching realm warriors. Who dares to disturb this emperor's rest? Just as Tang Ao was feeling puzzled, an imposing voice came from the Xinnong Emperor Palace. I am Tang Ao. This time, a friend has been poisoned by the golden-toothed snake emperor and is on the verge of death. Therefore, I have come to the Xinnong Emperor Palace to find the Xinnong grass to save her. There was no need to hide this matter, so Tang Ao said it directly. So, you're not here to accept the inheritance. When the Xinnong Emperor said this, he was a bit angry. However, Tang Ao seemed as if he did not hear the Xinnong Emperor's anger at all. Of course, if Senior insists on giving the inheritance to me, I can also accept it. Tang Ao's words almost caused the remnant soul that the Xinnong Emperor had gathered with great difficulty to completely disperse. He was one of the top powerhouses in this world. For the sake of his inheritance, countless warriors flocked like ducks. But this brat in front of him, not only did he not come to the Xinnong Emperor Palace to receive the inheritance, but he even insisted on giving it to him. He only accepted it conveniently. If you talk big, I want to see what kind of ability you have. As soon as the Xinnong Emperor finished speaking, Tang Ao was startled. Without any warning, a white light had already enveloped Tang Ao. Under this white light, Tang Ao felt that all his secrets were being seen through by the Xinnong Emperor. At this moment, Tang Ao had already confirmed that this Xinnong Emperor was indeed an existence that surpassed the astral reaching realm. Yeah, the reincarnation of an astral reaching realm martial artist, sky extreme eyes, hidden jade body and stone. Not bad, not bad. Oh, there's also the primordial sacred sky bow, and the 7-kill Emperor's 7-kill divine Tao. So you have some skills. No wonder you are so arrogant. When the Xinnong Emperor said these words indifferently, Tang Ao's heart was already in turmoil. Since Tang Ao started cultivating until now, this Xinnong Emperor was the first person to see that he was an astral-reaching realm martial artist. You don't need to be surprised. The difference between our cultivation bases is too big. With this divine ability, I can naturally see through everything about you. Although the Xinnong Emperor's tone was calm, Tang Ao could still hear the pride in his voice. May I ask if Senior's cultivation base has surpassed the astral reaching realm? What is the realm after that? Are there any higher realms after that? Although he had already confirmed in his heart that the Xinnong Emperor was a martial artist that had surpassed the astral reaching realm, Tang Ao still couldn't help but ask. That's right. This old man's realm is the yin-yang realm above the astral reaching realm. As for whether there is a higher realm after the yin-yang realm, naturally there is. However, it is useless for this old man to tell you now. In the future, when your cultivation base is high enough, you will naturally know. Hearing that there was a higher realm after the astral reaching realm, Tang Ao hurriedly asked, Senior, in my previous life, after I cultivated to the peak of the astral reaching realm level 9, why was I unable to break through to the yin-yang realm? Is it because of my talent? Chapter 687, Xianhuang World. This was the first time Tang Ao had heard someone refer to Xianhuang continent as Xianhuang World. Is the Xianhuang World Senior is talking about the current Xianhuang continent? The reason why Tang Ao asked this was because Tang Ao knew that this Xinnong Emperor was a person who lived even longer than his previous life. Therefore, Tang Ao guessed that in ancient times, the Xianhuang continent might have been called Xianhuang World. After Tang Ao asked this question, the Xinnong Emperor suddenly laughed. However, this laughter seemed to be filled with vicissitudes and helplessness. The current Xianhuang continent is merely a fragment of the Xianhuang world. There are 35 other planes similar to the Xianhuang world, collectively known as the 36 worlds. Taoist Ming Di is the realm lord of this Xianhuang world. As the Shennong Emperor spoke, he seemed to have sunk into a long memory. Tang Ao naturally wouldn't let the Shennong Emperor reminisce about the past. It wasn't easy for Tang Ao to meet an expert of the Shennong Emperor's level, so he naturally had to ask all the questions in his heart. The biggest regret of Tang Ao's previous life was that he couldn't surpass the peak of astral reaching realm in his entire life. Moreover, Tang Ao also didn't know the reason why he couldn't. Now that he had finally met someone who knew, Tang Ao naturally had to ask clearly. If this problem couldn't be solved, he would be stuck at the 9th level of astral reaching realm in this life, unable to climb any higher. The Xianhuang continent is only a fragment of the Xianhuang world? In that case, what's the difference between the Xianhuang world and the Xianhuang continent? Hearing this question, the Shennong Emperor, who wasn't far from Tang Ao, nodded. This is a good question. I'll also explain in detail. To be precise, the world we're in is called the true martial world, which is divided into 36 worlds. The Xianhuang world was once one of them. Every world has its own world lord, and Dao Brother Ming Di was once the world lord of the Xianhuang world. After listening to the Shennong Emperor's words, Tang Ao secretly lamented in his heart. The Shennong Emperor had already said this once before. Tang Ao was really worried that this relic had existed for too long. Perhaps the spiritual sense left behind by the Shennong Emperor had already lost its mind. Fortunately, Tang Ao's worry soon disappeared, because the Shennong Emperor said, as long as there is enough natural yuan power and high-level martial art, no matter where you are, you will be able to reach the peak of astral reaching realm 9th level. However, in some broken worlds where the natural rules were not complete, one would not be able to break through the astral reaching realm and achieve yin and yang. The Xianhuang continent that you're in is just a fragment of the Xianhuang world. Naturally, the rules of the heaven and earth are incomplete. At this point, the Shennong Emperor sighed and continued. Because of the incomplete rules of the heaven and earth, although you can feel the yin and yang realm qi, you will never be able to cross the threshold of the yin and yang realm. For the rest of your life, you will be stuck at the astral reaching realm. Hearing this, Tang Ao already understood why he couldn't break through the astral reaching realm. It was not because of him, but because the Xianhuang world had already been broken. In his previous life, Tang Ao could vaguely feel that something was missing in the heaven and earth. It was because of this missing something that caused him to be unable to break through this shackle after reaching the peak of astral reaching realm 9th level no matter how hard he tried. Because of his previous life's limited knowledge, Tang Ao didn't know what he was missing. Only now did Tang Ao realize that what he was missing was the complete natural rules to comprehend the mysteries of the yin and yang realm. So, the two neighboring continents are also the remnants of the Xianhuang world. Chapter 688. It's not just the 3 continents. There's also the 5 elements demon realm next to the black-yellow continent. I'm not sure if it's part of the black-yellow world. Although Tang Ao didn't know what the black-yellow world was like in the past, Tang Ao was very familiar with the current black-yellow continent. Moreover, Tang Ao had met people from the 5 elements demon realm in the Netherworld Emperor mystic realm. After hearing Tang Ao's words, the Shennong Emperor chuckled. Back then, the 5 elements demon realm was stronger than the black-yellow world. However, because the black-yellow world and the 5 elements demon realm joined forces to deal with the Netherfrost world, the Netherfrost world suffered a great loss and the 5 elements demon realm was shattered like the black-yellow world. However, unlike the black-yellow world, the core of the 5 elements demon realm was preserved. The 5 elements demon realm that you guys are talking about now is only a part of the original 5 elements demon realm. After the Shennong Emperor said so much, Tang Ao had a new understanding of the big picture of this world. Senior Shennong. This junior is here to obtain senior's Shennong grass. I wonder if this junior can accept the inheritance and obtain the Shinnong grass. Originally, Tang Ao didn't know that the Shinnong Emperor still had a remnant of his spiritual will here. According to Tang Ao's original idea, the Shinnong grass was to be found in the Shinnong Emperor's palace. Now that the Shinnong Emperor still had a remnant of his spiritual will here, things would be much easier. The inscription on the first stage of the Shinnong Emperor said that one could receive the inheritance after passing 3 stages and reaching the Shinnong Emperor's palace. Now, Tang Ao was clearly the first person to pass the 3 stages and reach the Shinnong Emperor's palace. There's no need to rush for my inheritance. I have 3 heritage sites, and this is just one of them. Let me continue to tell you about the path to the black-yellow world. Tang Ao had a headache. This kind of thing only needed to understand the key reason. There was no need to go into details. However, the Shinnong Emperor insisted on telling Tang Ao everything. Although the Shinnong Emperor's spiritual will couldn't do anything to Tang Ao still listened patiently. Now that Tang Ao knew the reason why astral-reaching realm martial artists couldn't break through the Yin-Yang realm, he only needed to get the Shinnong Emperor to get the Yin-Yang realm. However, Shinnong Emperor didn't seem to have any intention of giving him the Shinnong grass. Furthermore, Shinnong Emperor said that he had 3 legacy ruins. Tang Ao started to suspect that the Shinnong grass wasn't in this legacy ruin. After listening to the Shinnong Emperor's words, Tang Ao understood that the Cold Realm was an evil place that used other martial artists' life force to cultivate. Although the cultivation method was evil, it was extremely powerful. After listening to Shinnong Emperor's words, Tang Ao understood that the Nether Cold Realm was an extremely vicious place. It used the life force of other warriors to cultivate. Although the cultivation method was vicious, it was extremely strong. In the end, the Cold Realm was too powerful. Both the 5 elements Beast Realm and the Black-Yellow World were destroyed and removed from the 36 realms, becoming ordinary realms. In the end, the Nether Frost Realm was simply too strong. Even the 5 elemental Demon Realm and Xianhuang Realm, which were against it, were destroyed. They were removed from the 36 worlds and turned into ordinary planes. However, the Cold Realm was too powerful. Both the 5 elements Beast Realm and the Black-Yellow World were destroyed and removed from the 36 realms, becoming ordinary realms. At the same time, Tang Ao also knew that the snow field above was a space created by imitating the Cold Realm. Moreover, the creatures in the snow field were also from the Cold Realm. However, the Shinnong Emperor considered that the martial artists who came for the trial were not very powerful. Therefore, the level of the creatures in the snow field was not very high. Moreover, the Shinnong Emperor used some methods to seal some of his treasures in the bodies of the creatures in the Cold Realm. This was to encourage martial artists to kill the creatures. Chapter 689. The Shinnong Emperor was waiting for Tang Ao to say this. The fact that Tang Ao could say such words showed that Tang Ao's character was not bad. If Tang Ao was an evil person, even though Emperor Shinnong would still give him the inheritance, he would only give him a part of it. After all, even if he was an evil person, he would definitely be an outstanding talent of the Black-Yellow continent if he could come here. As long as he was from the Black-Yellow continent, he would definitely help when the Black-Yellow continent was in danger in the future. When the nest was overturned, there would be no eggs left intact. Therefore, after Tang Ao finished speaking, the Shinnong Emperor waved his hand. The door of the Shinnong Emperor Palace opened, and Tang Ao followed the Shinnong Emperor Palace into the Shinnong Emperor Palace. From the outside, the Shinnong Emperor Palace was already magnificent enough. When they arrived inside the Shinnong Emperor Palace, Tang Ao was even more amazed. In the current Black-Yellow continent, even the top sex halls could not be compared to the Shinnong Emperor Palace. As soon as they entered the Shinnong Emperor Palace, Tang Ao felt the extremely rich essence energy of heaven and earth. At the same time, a vast and profound feeling of vicissitudes hit him in the face. Tang Ao followed behind the Shinnong Emperor Palace and came to an empty place. In this empty place, Tang Ao felt strange. According to the layout of the Shinong Emperor Palace, there should be something here. However, Tang Ao scanned it with his soul power several times, but he still did not see anything. Since he could not see it with his naked eyes and soul power, Tang Ao naturally activated his skypole eyes. As expected, after Tang Ao activated his skypole eyes, he found some jade boxes floating in the air. There were a total of 108 jade boxes, but there were powerful restrictions on them. Even the skypolarity eyes couldn't break the restrictions in a short period of time to see what was inside. This was the first time Tang Ao had encountered something that even Tang Ao couldn't see through since he had the skypolar eyes. Even the skypolarity eyes could not see through it. Other than the fact that the Shinong Emperor was extremely powerful, it could only mean that the treasure in the jade box was extraordinary. Otherwise, the Shinong Emperor would not have used such a method to seal these treasures. Just as Tang Ao was thinking about what was sealed in the jade box, a jade box flew in front of Tang Ao. This jade box contains the Shinong grass. The Shinong grass can cure all kinds of poisons in the world. It can cure diseases and save lives. After you obtain it, you must use it well. After the Shinong Emperor finished speaking, the restrictions on the jade box slowly disappeared. After the restrictions on the jade box disappeared, Tang Ao opened it easily. Right then, a green and transparent grass was lying quietly in the jade box. There was a warm aura coming from the grass, which made Tang Ao feel refreshed. Tang Ao had thought that the Shinong grass was a spirit medicine, but now, Tang Ao knew that he was wrong. Not only was the Shinong grass not a medicine, it was a treasure. After getting the Shinong grass and knowing the reason why astral reaching realm warriors could break through to the yin-yang realm, Tang Ao's trip could be said to be perfect. However, Tang Ao knew that there were still more than 100 jade boxes here, and the Shinong grass was only one of the treasures in one of them. Tang Ao was the first one to come down to receive the inheritance, so it was impossible for him to not have any thoughts. Tang Ao did not want to take all of the jade boxes here. He just wanted a few more. The Shinong Emperor seemed to know what Tang Ao was thinking, so he said lightly, "The rest of the things in the jade boxes are useless to you. Don't think about it anymore." After being seen through by the Shinong Emperor, Tang Ao was a bit embarrassed. However, the next words of the Shinong Emperor made Tang Ao very happy. "Since you have the acquired sky polarity eyes, we are somewhat related. I will now teach you the training method of the sky polarity eyes." Chapter 690. As Tang Ao was pondering, Shinong Emperor waved his hand, and a jade strip appeared in Tang Ao's hand. Then, Shinong Emperor pointed at a door, and a stone door in Shinong Emperor's palace slowly opened. "You stay in my training room and increase your cultivation base to the peak of the 9th floor of Linghai Jing. I have something to tell you." Although Shinong Emperor said it was an order, Tang Ao didn't have any other thoughts. Moreover, Tang Ao had received a great favor from Shinong Emperor. Right now, Shinong Emperor had even lent his training room to Tang Ao. Shinong Emperor was a martial artist who had surpassed the astral reaching realm. His training room would certainly not be too bad. Tang Ao had wanted to increase his cultivation base for a long time, and this was truly a good thing. Therefore, Tang Ao didn't hesitate and stepped into Shinong Emperor's training room. After Tang Ao entered the training room, the stone door also slowly closed. However, Tang Ao wasn't worried, because the stone door also had a restriction to open it. The natural yuan power in Shinong Emperor's palace was already much denser than the one in Seven Kill Sect. Moreover, the natural yuan power in this training room was so dense that it had formed a spirit mist. Seeing such a dense spirit mist, Tang Ao's confidence soared. With such a cultivation treasure land, not to mention a mere 9th floor of Linghai Jing, it wouldn't be much of a problem for Tang Ao to cultivate to the life and death realm. In the training room Tang Ao had prepared, Tang Ao was still curious as he opened the Sky Polar Eyes cultivation jade strip. As Tang Ao's soul power seeped in, Tang Ao also understood the contents of the jade strip. The more Tang Ao read the contents, the more shocked he became. This was because this jade slip was not written by the Shenong Emperor, but by the first person who possessed the Sky Polar pupils. Moreover, Tang Ao also knew where the Sky Polar Eyes came from. It turned out that this Sky Polar Eyes wasn't something he was born with. Instead, it was cultivated through a great technique. The first person to possess the Sky Polar Eyes was in a similar situation as Tang Ao, losing both his eyes in battle. After losing his eyes, this person encountered a series of misfortunes. In the end, he pondered over the painful experience and cultivated a type of god, in a heritage ruin. This god was also known as the Sky Polar Eyes. The celestial polarity pupils are actually cultivated. After reading the Jade Scroll, Tang Ao couldn't calm down for a long time. Tang Ao originally wanted to use the Jade Bone Life Soul to repair his eyes once it advanced to the next level. However, now that he had the cultivation Jade Scroll of the Sky Polar Eyes, Tang Ao also wanted to cultivate his own Sky Polar Eyes. After going through the cultivation technique several times, Tang Ao took out a jade box and sat on the ground calmly. The Jade Bone Life Soul kept surging out of Tang Ao's body. Then, under Tang Ao's control, the pale green light spot of the Jade Bone Life Soul came to Tang Ao's eyes. As the Jade Bone Life Soul seeped in, Tang Ao's eyes were slowly taken out by the Jade Bone Life Soul and placed into the jade box that Tang Ao had prepared beforehand. After wrapping the eyes with the Jade Bone Life Soul and placing them into the jade box, Tang Ao quickly set up several restrictions on the jade box and sealed it. This pair of Sky Polar Eyes was transplanted to him by Su Ning. Now that he had obtained the Shenong grass, he could go back and save Su Ning. Therefore, the Sky Polar Eyes naturally had to be returned to Su Ning. Moreover, now that Tang Ao had the cultivation method of the Sky Polar Eyes, according to the creator of the Sky Polar Eyes, as long as he had the hidden jade and stone body, there was a 90% chance of cultivating the Sky Polar Eyes. Chapter 691. At that moment, Tang Ao was following the heavenly extreme eyes cultivation techniques, chi circulation cycle. Tang Ao was constantly absorbing the spirit chi that was as dense as a fei. Due to Tang Ao's guidance, the spirit chi from all directions surged over. The spirit chi was like a whirlpool that spiraled around Tang Ao and surged into Tang Ao's body. Although the spirit chi was surging, it was immediately refined by the ancient god moving sky technique once it entered Tang Ao's body. At that moment, Tang Ao was like a millstone, and the surrounding heaven and earth essence energy was like beans that were constantly being added into the millstone. Even if the beans were surging, they would still be crushed by the millstone. Tang Ao was constantly absorbing and refining the heaven and earth essence energy from the outside world. After completing a chi circulation in his body, the essence energy would extract a few traces of blood chi from Tang Ao's body and gather in Tang Ao's eyes. As the blood chi gathered, Tang Ao's eyes would constantly emit a warm and refreshing feeling. Furthermore, Tang Ao had an illusion that something was about to be born. As Tang Ao continued to complete the chi circulation, the feeling became increasingly intense. After Tang Ao completed 360 circulatory cycles, 2 cracking sounds could be heard. The sound didn't seem to be heard by the ears, but it truly existed. Subsequently, Tang Ao's eyes abruptly opened, and 2 green rays shot out. When he saw the scene in front of him, Tang Ao was greatly shocked. This was because everything above the snowfield could be seen clearly through Tang Ao's heavenly extreme eyes. At that moment, Tang Ao even saw Chu Feiyu and the others massacring the warriors on the snowfield. Tang Ao really wanted to go and kill Chu Feiyu and the others. However, Tang Ao's current strength was clearly insufficient. In addition to Chu Feiyu and the others, Tang Ao also saw Xia Qinyu. At this moment, Xia Qinyu was cultivating with her eyes closed. It was unknown if Xia Qinyu sensed that he was looking at her, but she looked in his direction with a puzzled expression. Tang Ao wanted to see what Xia Qinyu was doing, but he suddenly felt dizzy. Feeling the dizziness, Tang Ao hurriedly retracted his sky polar eyes. Now, Tang Ao's sky polarity pupils were cultivated by himself. Moreover, compared to Su Ning's sky polar pupil, the sky polar pupil that he had cultivated was more powerful. Su Ning's sky polar pupil could not see more than 300 feet in the snowfield at all. Moreover, the further down he looked, the shorter the distance became. However, now that Tang Ao was underground in the snowfield, he could see through the entire layer of snow and directly above the snowfield. In his excitement, Tang Ao hurriedly retracted his sky polar pupil and seized the time to cultivate. Now, Tang Ao was no longer interested in the other jade boxes in the Shinnong Emperor's palace. This was because when Tang Ao took a look at them just now, he really could not use any of the items in the jade boxes. Originally, when he used Su Ning's sky polar pupil, Tang Ao could not clearly see what was in the jade boxes. However, after Tang Ao cultivated his sky polar pupil, Tang Ao could clearly see the items in the jade boxes. These jade boxes were also a type of spatial treasure. Although the jade boxes were only the size of a palm, there was a 6-foot square space inside. There were cultivation techniques, weapons, various martial techniques, elixirs, and some other treasures in the jade boxes. Even for Tang Ao, each of these items was a priceless treasure. However, now that Tang Ao had better items on him, these items were naturally dispensable. Chapter 692. As for the rest of the treasures in the jade box, Tang Ao did not need any of them. After looking through all the treasures in the jade box, Tang Ao had another question in his mind. He was wondering where these 100 jade boxes were floating. However, the Shinnong grass given by the Shinnong Emperor was obviously not on the same level as those treasures. The other 100 jade boxes were not as valuable as the Shinnong grass. After thinking for a while, Tang Ao did not have any clue, so he stopped thinking about it. The most important thing now was to increase his cultivation to the life and death realm. Even if he could not break through to the life and death realm, he had to cultivate to the 9th floor of Linghai Jing. As long as he cultivated to the 9th floor of Linghai Jing, he would have the means to deal with Chu Feiyu and the others. Now, the difference in cultivation between Tang Ao and Chu Feiyu and the others was too big. Even if Tang Ao fought to the death, it was unlikely that he could kill Chu Feiyu and the others. On the contrary, the possibility of him dying was quite high. Moreover, the Shinnong Emperor had just said that he had to quickly cultivate to the peak of the 9th floor of Linghai Jing, or even the life and death realm. He had something to tell him. Although Tang Ao did not know what the Shinnong Emperor had to tell him, Tang Ao thought that it was definitely not something good. When Tang Ao entered the Shinnong Emperor Palace, he received a lot of favors from the Shinnong Emperor. If the Shinnong Emperor did not have anything to ask Tang Ao to do for him, Tang Ao would really feel bad. Whether it was the treasure, Shinnong grass, or the cultivation method of the sky polar eyes, once it was spread to the outside world, the warriors in the black-yellow continent would probably go crazy. Even if one did not have the hidden jade and stone body, there would still be countless warriors who wanted to cultivate the sky polar eyes. Moreover, the creator of the sky polar eyes, Su Dowling, also said that having the hidden jade and stone body would only increase the probability of cultivating the sky polar eyes. In other words, even if one did not have the hidden jade and stone body, one could still cultivate the sky polar eyes. However, there was a prerequisite to cultivating the sky polar pupils, and that was to remove both of his eyes. Although this condition was a little harsh, there were still countless people who were willing to remove their eyes for a godly, like the sky polar pupils. Moreover, not everyone in the black-yellow continent was so noble that they would not attack others even if they were blind. Tang Ao was certain that if a martial artist failed to cultivate the sky polar pupils, they would immediately capture an innocent person and transplant their eyes to themselves. Thinking of this, Tang Ao carefully sealed the cultivation jade slip of heavenly polar eyes. Tang Ao had already decided that if he had the ability in the future, he would definitely modify the cultivation method of the sky polar eyes so that he would be able to cultivate the sky polar eyes even if he still had both of his eyes. If Tang Ao didn't have the ability to do so, the cultivation jade slip for the heavenly polar eyes would remain sealed. Moreover, the method Tang Ao used to seal the sky polar pupil cultivation jade slip was unusual. It was a life soul imprint. This kind of seal had a special characteristic. If the martial artist who placed the seal didn't die, then the seal would be extremely difficult to remove. Once the martial artist who placed the seal died, the cultivation jade slip would be instantly burned. After sealing the jade slip, Tang Ao took out a jade box and put the jade slip inside. At the same time, he placed several restrictions on the jade box. After doing all this, Tang Ao then began to cultivate. In the main hall of the Farmer God Palace, the Shinong Emperor's spiritual force also nodded in satisfaction. He had seen everything that Tang Ao had done. The Shinong Emperor was also very satisfied with Tang Ao's talent. Chapter 693. While Tang Ao was cultivating in the Shinong Emperor's palace, the snowfield did not calm down. At the moment, many corpses of warriors were lying on the snowfield. Up until now, half of the martial artists who entered this snowfield had already perished. Most of the warriors who were still alive had fled into the snowfield like Tang Ao. The warriors from the Black-Yellow continent had resisted for a while in front of Chu Feiyu and the others. However, after Fang Hongjian, who was on the 9th floor of Linghai Jing, was severely injured by Mo Gu, the warriors from the Black-Yellow continent knew that Chu Feiyu and the others were all life and death realm warriors. 150 feet underground in the snowfield, Fang Hongjian's spiritual power was in a mess. He had yet to recover from the battle with Mo Gu from the Tianyang continent 3 days ago. At the moment, Murong Xiao, Fang Hongjian, Shi Hongyi, whom Tang Ao had met before, Lin Yuten, who had traded with Tang Ao, and Yin Yin, who had the hidden jade and stone physique like Tang Ao, were all here. In addition to Murong Xiao and the others, many warriors who had survived in the snowfield were also here. Right now, everyone was looking at Murong Xiao. Out of everyone present, Murong Xiao's cultivation base was the strongest. Not long ago, Murong Xiao had hidden in a snow cave under the snowfield and used some methods to break through to the life and death realm. Seeing that Murong Xiao and the others were silent, a warrior got up and said to Murong Xiao, "Senior brother Murong, your cultivation is the highest here. Tell us how to deal with the 5 bastard from the Tianyang continent. We will all listen to you." Murong Xiao frowned when he heard the warrior's words. "Are you sure there are no more people from the Black-Yellow continent in the snowfield?" A moment ago, Murong Xiao had already looked around carefully. Tang Ao and Xia Qinyu were nowhere to be found among the 100 or so surviving cultivators. Others might not know, but Murong Xiao knew that Tang Ao and Xia Qinyu had treasures on them. Half a month ago, his spiritual treasure disc had tested a 9th grade magic weapon. Murong Xiao suspected that the 9th grade magic weapon was in Tang Ao's possession. In addition to the 9th grade divine weapon, Murong Xiao also knew that Xia Qinyu had an 8th grade divine weapon, and this 8th grade divine weapon was the treasure of the Tai Ching sect, Tai Ching Xian Mirror. If it was said that Murong Xiao could only snatch the supreme purity mysterious mirror in secret before, now Murong Xiao could openly ask for it. When everyone heard Murong Xiao's question, their hearts warmed. Even now, Murong Xiao was still worried about the warriors on the snowfield. This was enough to show Murong Xiao's benevolence and righteousness. Senior fellow apprentice Murong Xiao, there are no living warriors on the snowfield now. When I woke up, there were no living people around, so I was the last warrior to come down to the snowfield. When Murong Xiao heard this warrior's words, he was very disappointed. The reason why Murong Xiao asked everyone was to know the whereabouts of Tang Ao and Xia Qinyu. So, no one has seen Tang Ao and Xia Qinyu? If it weren't for Tai Ching Xian Mirror and Tang Ao's ninth grade divine weapon being too attractive, Murong Xiao would not ask such a stupid question anyway. Now that Murong Xiao asked this question, it meant that Murong Xiao wanted Tai Ching Xian Mirror and Tang Ao's ninth grade divine weapon. After all, by now, Xia Qinyu's Tai Ching Xian Mirror and Tang Ao's ninth grade divine weapon were already public secrets. As soon as Murong Xiao said this, everyone knew what he was planning. Even Feng Hongjian and the others glanced at Murong Xiao. Right now, Murong Xiao was stronger than them, but there was a limit to how much stronger he was. It was obviously not so easy for Murong Xiao to keep the two divine weapons alone. Chapter 694. At this moment, Tang Ao had been cultivating in Shinnong Emperor's palace for half a month. In this half a month, Tang Ao's cultivation base had been rising rapidly every second. If it were not for other things, Tang Ao really wanted to cultivate until he reached the astral reaching realm. However, Tang Ao also knew that although the spirit chi here could allow him to cultivate until the astral reaching realm, it would be impossible for him to do so without 5,000 years. If Tang Ao really cultivated here for 5,000 years, then he would not need to take the Shinnong grass to save Suning. Moreover, Tang Ao could vaguely feel that the spirit chi in the surroundings seemed to be weakening. Although it was very subtle, Tang Ao had been cultivating here for half a month, so he could still feel it. Therefore, Tang Ao guessed that because of the long time this training room had been here, it had already started to be damaged. At the same time that Tang Ao sensed the abnormality, Shinnong Emperor also slightly frowned. The training room Tang Ao was using right now was a magical weapon that he had crafted many years ago. If he had not fallen, then he would have been able to repair this magical weapon. Right now, he only had a strand of spirit sense left, and this strand of spirit sense was about to dissipate. Therefore, he naturally could not repair this training room. Tang Ao had the hidden Jade body, just like him. Moreover, Tang Ao could come to Shinnong Emperor's palace without the help of the immortal dark flame. This meant that not only was Tang Ao powerful, but his luck was also amazing. Therefore, Shinnong Emperor really wanted to pass his inheritance to Tang Ao. However, he had overestimated the inheritor's cultivation base. In Shinnong Emperor's opinion, to be able to come to this place, one would at least be a first-level life and death realm warrior. However, what Shinnong Emperor had never expected was that Tang Ao had actually burned his essence blood to come to Shinnong Emperor's palace on the 5th floor of Linghai Jing. Although Tang Ao's cultivation was somewhat low, the Shinnong Emperor believed that Tang Ao had great potential. Although he had used some tricks to get here on the 5th floor of Linghai Jing, it was still a good result. If Tang Ao had come a few hundred years earlier, he could have opened the inheritance and directly given it to Tang Ao. But now, he no longer has the ability to open his inheritance. Therefore, he decided to let Tang Ao cultivate in his own cultivation room. However, the Shinnong Emperor didn't consider that his training room was about to collapse after such a long time. Sensing the faintly discernible cracks around him, Tang Ao frowned slightly. He had been cultivating in the cultivation room for a total of 29 days, and his cultivation base had reached the peak of the 9th floor of Linghai Jing. Tang Ao knew that as long as he had half a day, he would be able to break through the Sea of Soul's realm and reach the life and death realm. However, right now, Tang Ao knew that he didn't have half a day to cultivate. A golden light flickered on Tang Ao's body, and Tang Ao rushed out of the Shinnong Emperor's cultivation room. Shinnong Emperor, your cultivation room is not good. Tang Ao looked at the cultivation room that had turned into ruins behind him and said somewhat helplessly. The Shinnong Emperor looked at Tang Ao with satisfaction. Kid, not bad. In a short 29 days, you've cultivated from the 5th floor of Linghai Jing to the peak of the 9th floor of Linghai Jing. Although you haven't reached the life and death realm, it's still not bad. If this old man hadn't fallen for so many years, this cultivation room would have no problem supporting you until the astral reaching realm. Regarding the Shinnong Emperor's words, Tang Ao didn't doubt them at all. Tang Ao had cultivated in the cultivation room for so long, so he naturally knew the extraordinariness of this cultivation room. If there were no problems with this cultivation room, Tang Ao would have a high chance of cultivating to the astral reaching realm. However, even if he could cultivate to the astral reaching realm, Tang Ao wouldn't cultivate there. Chapter 695. As for how to leave the snow field, Tang Ao really did not have any ideas. Even if Tang Ao could enter the Shinnong Emperor Palace, Tang Ao did not think that he could leave the snow field in a short period of time. Although if Tang Ao kept training until he reached the peak of astral reaching realm level 9, he would definitely be able to tear open the space of the snow field and leave. But right now, what Tang Ao lacked the most was time. Therefore, Tang Ao had to leave the snow field as soon as possible. This Shinnong ruins was set up by the Shinnong Emperor. If he wanted to leave the snow field, he would naturally have to ask the Shinnong Emperor. After hearing Tang Ao's question, the Shinnong Emperor smiled faintly and said, "Originally, I set up 3 trials. The first trial, the life forest, requires one to refine 108 strands of life aura before they can be considered to have passed. Without refining 108 strands of life qi, trying to pass the trial is just asking for trouble." Hearing the Shinnong Emperor's words, Tang Ao really wanted to say that he had refined 108 strands of life qi. However, Tang Ao hesitated for a bit and did not say it because Tang Ao knew that the Shinnong Emperor must have something else to say. Indeed, the Shinnong Emperor quickly continued. The second trial is a treasure of mine, called the Spirit Tower. 1 strand of life qi can allow one to go up 1 floor of the tower. If one can go up 108 floors, not only can one break through to the life and death realm, but one can also obtain the immortal dark flame. Hearing about the immortal dark flame, Tang Ao was shocked. If not going to the Spirit Tower only meant losing a bit of cultivation opportunity, Tang Ao could still accept it. But if the 108 floors of the tower had the immortal dark flame, then Tang Ao's loss would be huge. Among all the warriors, only Tang Ao had refined 108 strands of life qi. In other words, the immortal dark flame was given to Tang Ao for free. In the end, Tang Ao directly skipped the second trial and came to the third one, which was very annoying. Tang Ao had decided to come to the Shinnong ruins again after sending the Shinnong grass away. Putting everything else aside, the immortal nether flame was ranked 7th among the divine flames. Since he had encountered it, Tang Ao naturally would not miss it. Although the immortal nether flame was ranked 7th, as far as Tang Ao knew, the top 10 flames weren't separated by rank. Even if one flame was slightly stronger, it wasn't by much. As Tang Ao was pondering this, the Shinnong Emperor continued. The reason I left the immortal dark flame in the Spirit Pagoda was so that the cultivators who obtained it could use the immortal dark flame to melt the 5,000 feet of ice and snow. I didn't expect that not only do you not have the immortal dark flame, but you also don't have a flame of the same level. You only relied on the extreme cold barrier to burn your blood essence to rush down. Not bad, not bad. Although being praised by an ancient powerhouse like the Shinnong Emperor was something to be proud of, if Tang Ao had known that the immortal dark flame was at the top of the Spirit Pagoda, Tang Ao would definitely have obtained the immortal dark flame. With the immortal dark flame, it was much easier for Tang Ao to deal with Wu Ku. As long as Tang Ao used the sky polar eyes to freeze Wu Ku and then summoned the immortal dark flame, the battle would be over. However, Tang Ao still didn't say anything because Tang Ao had just asked how to leave the snowfield. Until now, the Shinnong Emperor had said a lot, but he still hadn't said how to leave the snowfield. Tang Ao was worried that the Shinnong Emperor's divine sense had been in a trance for a long time. So he asked again, "Senior Shinnong, my junior sister was injured by the Golden Fong Snake Lord, and I urgently need the Shinong grass to cure the poison. Senior, please tell me how to leave the snowfield. Don't worry, don't worry. I've said so much, so naturally, I want to tell you how to leave the snowfield. In other words, even if I don't say it, you already know how to leave the snowfield. Chapter 696. Tang Ao's expression was a bit unsightly, but he still asked with a bit of hope, Senior Shinong, what is the way to leave this snowfield? Train to the astral reaching realm and break through the space barrier of the snowfield. The Shinong Emperor did not hide anything, since this was also his original intention. According to the Shinong Emperor's plan, the martial artist who came to inherit his heritage would be able to break through to the life and death realm in the Spirit Tower. Then, with the help of the training room in the Shinong Emperor's palace, he would be able to become an astral-reaching realm martial artist in one go. After becoming an astral-reaching realm martial artist, one would naturally be able to break through the space barrier of the snowfield and leave. However, man proposes, God disposes. The Shinong Emperor would never have thought that because Tang Ao had the map of the Shinong ruins, Tang Ao did not even need to go through the second level, the Spirit Tower, and directly came to the third level, the ice snow field. Moreover, the Shinong Emperor had also overestimated the usage of the training room in the Shinong Emperor's palace. After his fall, the Shinong Emperor's palace had become this unstable. After hearing the Shinong Emperor's words, Tang Ao weakly leaned against the wall. At this moment, Su Ning's pure and cute appearance flashed in front of his eyes. Also, when Su Ning was sealed in ice, she asked Lu Lingxian to transplant her sky polar eyes to him. Tang Ao also remembered. After arriving at the Shinong ruins, Tang Ao did not waste even a second because he wanted to get the Shinong grass as soon as possible to save Su Ning. Right now, Tang Ao had already gotten the Shinong grass, but Tang Ao was trapped in the snowfield. Right now, Tang Ao only had the cultivation of the 9th floor of Linghai Jing, which was still a long way from the astral reaching realm. Even if the training room in the Shinong Emperor's palace was not damaged, Tang Ao felt that it would take him 1,000 years to break through to the astral reaching realm. While Tang Ao was hesitating, the Shinong Emperor suddenly had an idea. The Shinong Emperor had sensed the aura of the phantom ice python on Tang Ao. Young friend Tang Ao, do you have an ethereal frost python as your pet beast? Tang Ao did not know why the Shinong Emperor would ask such a question, but he still summoned the frost blood snake soul with a wave of his hand. I thought it was a frost blood snake. I didn't expect it to be a phantom frost python. May I know what's so special about this phantom ice python? Shinong Emperor stroked his beard. Back then, this old man killed Empress Yulong of the Frost Ghost Dragon race in this Shinong Emperor palace. As long as this ice ghost python can inherit Empress Yulong's inheritance, it can obtain a strand of Emperor Yulong's nether dragon chi. Emperor Yulong's nether dragon chi. What is that? Tang Ao knew about the Frost Ghost Dragon, but Tang Ao had never heard of Emperor Yulong and Emperor Yulong's chi. The Shinong Emperor and Emperor Yulong had fought for many years, so he obviously knew the latter very well. What the Emperor Yulong's chi is not important. What's important is that although this Emperor Yulong's chi can only be used once, it is enough to break the barrier of the snow field and allow you to leave. Tang Ao was shocked. With the sturdiness of this snow field, even an astral-reaching martial artist would need to use all his strength to break the space barrier. However, who was this Emperor Yulong? He had only left behind a strand of his aura, and it was already enough to break the space barrier. After the shock, Tang Ao was very happy. As long as the heavens did not stop, there would always be a chance of survival. Tang Ao had heard this before, but only now did Tang Ao have a deep understanding of it. Although Tang Ao would not be able to break through to the astral reaching realm in a short period of time and break through the space barrier of the snowfield, this Emperor Yulong had left behind could help Tang Ao leave. Chapter 697. Sensing the emotions from the frost blood snake, Tang Ao was very touched. Leaving the frost blood snake to guard the rear was a decision that Tang Ao had no choice but to make. This was because the frost blood snake's body was powerful. Even if Tang Ao were to fight it with the battle sagebone life soul, he definitely wouldn't be able to withstand a single punch from Wu Ku. Wu Ku's punch had destroyed the frost blood snake's body, but if it had been Tang Ao, that punch would have destroyed Tang Ao's body and soul. After releasing the frost blood snake, it didn't blame Tang Ao for leaving it to guard the rear. Now that it saw that Tang Ao was still alive, it kept sending out happy emotions. Tang Ao looked at the frost blood snake and said seriously, "Frost blood snake, you're my brother from now on. I'm your big brother. No matter what danger you encounter in the future, I, Tang Ao, will protect you. I definitely won't die behind your back." The frost blood snake's intelligence was extremely low, so it didn't quite understand Tang Ao's words. However, it knew that it would protect Tang Ao even if it had to risk its life in the future. At the same time, it also vaguely understood that Tang Ao had the same thoughts as it. After summoning the frost blood snake's soul, Tang Ao waved his hand, and the jade bone life soul wrapped around the frost blood snake's soul. The frost blood snake's soul had suffered some injuries previously, so Tang Ao used the jade bone life soul to nourish its soul. While Tang Ao was repairing the frost blood snake's soul, the Shinong Emperor circled the frost blood snake. I originally thought that the frost blood snake only contained a wisp of dragon aura. I never expected it to be an ancient mutated frost python. The appearance of the frost blood snake is similar to that of the phantom frost python, but the frost blood snake can only evolve into an ordinary ice dragon, while the phantom frost python can evolve into one of the most powerful dragon clans, the phantom frost dragon. Tang Ao was overjoyed when he heard that the frost blood snake could evolve into a frost dark dragon. The dragon clan could be said to be the most powerful clan among the beasts. Aside from the ancient mutants, there was no other clan among the beasts that could compare to the dragon clan. However, there were many different types of dragons. But among the hundreds of dragon clans and the lesser dragon clans, there were 4 major dragon clans that were the most powerful. They stood above the other dragon clans. These 4 types of dragons were the burning flame dragon, the dark frost dragon, the primordial thunder dragon, and the 9-clawed golden dragon. Tang Hoi-er, who had formed a spirit beast contract with Tang Ao, was a burning true dragon. Now, the frost blood snake was about to evolve into a frost dark dragon. It could be said that once Tang Hoi-er and the frost blood snake matured, no one in the entire black-yellow continent would be a match for them. The frost blood snake had yet to obtain the inheritance of the dark dragon empress, so Tang Ao was not sure how strong the frost dark dragon bloodline would be in the future. However, Tang Ao knew about the purity of Tang Hoi-er's bloodline. Under Tang Ao's investigation, Tang Hoi-er's bloodline was 100% burning flame true dragon bloodline. According to Tang Ao's knowledge, 10,000 years ago, the strongest expert of the burning flame true dragon clan only had a 70% pure bloodline. After 10,000 years, the purity of the burning flame true dragon clan's bloodline must have dropped by a lot. Senior Shinong, are you saying that the frost blood snake can evolve into a frost dark dragon? Although Tang Ao was very happy, Tang Ao was worried that the Shinong Emperor's divine would make a wrong judgment due to its age. Therefore, Tang Ao could not help but ask again. When did I say that the frost blood snake can evolve into a frost dark dragon? How many times do I have to repeat myself? This is not a frost blood snake. This is an ancient mutant, frost dark python. If it wasn't for the fact that this frost dark python is not a first-generation frost dark python and doesn't have the flesh of a first-generation frost dark python, it would be stronger than the frost dark dragon even if it did not accept the inheritance of the dark dragon empress. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.